Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's August 8th, 2023, and you are listening to The Jeff Gerstmann Show. It's a podcast about video games. I am hosting this week's installment of the show, and my name is Jeff Gerstmann. How are you? Great. It's good to be back with everyone. I trust that you had a fantastic weekend, and we're getting into it. It's Thirsty Tuesday, I think is what they call it. Right? That's when you decided to get hammered on a Tuesday because you're like, let's just live, baby. Let's just live. Like Post Malone. What would Post Malone do? Like the bumper sticker says. Who would have, it's, everyone, by all accounts, by many accounts, I guess I can't say all accounts, but I feel like I've read a number of accounts talking about how Post Malone is a super nice guy and actually like a good dude and like not a absolute idiot and jack off like you might think. Like I might, that doesn't, that's not, I don't know that necessarily makes me want to run out and enjoy Post Malone's music because of what I have not been a fan of what I've heard, but hey, he's just out here spending millions of dollars on magic cards, not abusing his dancers and getting sued or whatever the hell is going on with Lizzo. I don't know. If we're ranking celebrities, is Post Malone now higher on the list than Lizzo? Is that the surprise of the century for some folks? Maybe, I don't know. I'm glad that I'm able to finally weigh in on this heavy Lizzo time. Who cares? So we embarked on an interesting journey last week, and I kind of walked into this thinking like, oh, maybe, I don't know, but I believe that I'm gonna play. We'll start with everyone released in the United States, licensed and unlicensed. We'll probably stick to licensed most up front, and maybe we'll see. I am going to rank every single Nintendo Entertainment System game released in the United States. And we started that on Friday. That video is up on YouTube. You can catch it right now. The first 9 games made their way onto the list. So I'm gonna, this is, it's as it is scientific. We're making snap judgments based on the a handful of time, minutes, hour with a game, something like that. So we got to combine with some past experience and so on and so forth. So it's been interesting already, I think, even with just the first 9 games on the list, because it was a weird. I had this. I keep bringing it up because it felt strange. It was like this weird crisis of conscience, almost, of just like, ah, man, maybe the NES is not actually good. Because, it's like in an era when everything gets emulated and we have just like constant access to everything all the time. It becomes very easy to just forget games and their place, and so games become legendary. And they become, I think, in my head, they just become automatically legendary. Like, I hadn't really revisited any of these games with any seriousness for a very, like, when's the last time I played through an NES game? Like, Retro Achievements has been kind of, which their website is back up, by the way, at retroachievements.org. Congratulations to them for all the hard work they've been doing they've been upgrading a lot of stuff behind the scenes over there. Their website has been getting me to focus more and more on actually playing some older games instead of just like loading it up for 5 minutes for just like a whiff of it and be like, oh yeah, no, you run to the right, you punch a guy. Yeah, right. And I had to sit and think like, what NES games are actually good? Which games are amazing? What games are actually fantastic? And like, as I sat and thought about it, I was like, like automatically I would say something like a River City Ransom or like a Bionic Commando. But like all of those came with caveats in my head. And so I was just like, man, did these games just age poorly? But it became clear that like I was not referencing like recent plays of these games. It was just like kind of these automated like, oh yeah, Mega Man 2, that's a great game, whatever. And I can't tell you the last time I played any Mega Man 2. So it got me thinking about wanting to revisit some of those games and just try to and so I think this first stream, which again it's on YouTube, you can go find it right now on YouTube, and we'll come up with a snappier name for it. I don't know, maybe it needs some artwork for it or something cool like that, but if we're gonna really do this, so I think I answered the question at least by playing a handful of games and going like, no, these games are still good. Like these games still play well. Like it was this feeling of just like the NES, man, is it actually just fucking bad? Like is it pure nostalgia? And so going back to it, I was like, yeah, no, these are good. These games are good. And so I feel like I answered the first question. But also like the NES becomes it's become the go-to place, I feel, for a lot of like retro content on YouTube, one way or the other, or pre-YouTube even. I was talking about, Sean Baby writing about like, what was it, like Deadly Towers or some of these games like back in the 90s or whatever. Like the NES became this punching bag. It became the closest thing to common ground for people for a long time. And so it's just become the thing that everyone, and I suppose like I'm now guilty of this by like doing this, but like, it just was this feeling of like, man, everyone has done everything about all these NES games. And it now just kind of like that's become when people think about those games, I think people sometimes think about that content instead of like their own time playing the games. And so it made me want to revisit the games. It made me want to revisit the full library, because I think there are some cases where the games that everyone dogpiled on and went like, ha ha ha, these games are such shit. Woo! Look at my funny video where I'm mad at the video game. Like, I think some of those games are not nearly as bad as they've become in people's heads. And I think that there are also like games that are just kind of like rubber stamped as amazing that are probably either not as good or maybe just didn't hold up quite as well. And so like I'm kind of interested in checking some of that stuff out. And so I'm gonna check those games out. This is I desperately want to do this. I'm so fucking like I was like, I'm gonna drop everything else and just do this. But I know we'll keep up with some new releases also, of course. But yeah, so we've ended up with a ranking of well, here we'll have to call up the notepad for the energy drink stuff in a sec here. But this will be spoilers, I guess, if you have not watched the show yet. But here's the current list as it stands. These are the 9 games: Captain Skyhawk, Lunar Pool, Kid Nicky, Radical Ninja, Wrecking Crew, Low G-Man, The Low Gravity Man, Muscle Tag Team Match, Kung Fu, Solomon's Key, and River City Ransom. And it's a wide swath of games. Captain Skyhawk is an abysmal piece of garbage. But the other awesome thing that happens, this is going to be fun to do, I think, for a variety of reasons. Every NES game is someone's favorite game of all time. Whether they're right or wrong, there's always going to be someone who is just like, what are you talking? Like someone literally, I think, in the comments of this video was already like, Captain Skyhawk is a great game. What are you talking about? And so, like, yeah, every one of these games is going to end up being someone's favorite game from childhood somehow. So, shit happens, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, so that was a lot of fun on Friday. Definitely go check that video out, and we will build that list of 700. Is that 700 games? Is that what it is? 719, 716 is the licensed number according to Bryn. And that there's a bunch of unlicensed stuff. I need to play some unlicensed stuff because Chiller needs to be on this list. Because I overpaid, or I over traded for a copy of Chiller in my teens, because I was like, look at this, it's got to be like, look at this unlicensed fucked up cartridge. I can say with some certainty here, it's a miserable video game. Absolutely, positively miserable. Yeah, Bubble Bath Babes. Yeah, we'll figure out if if the adult games end up getting on the list, like how we make that happen. We can like blur the screen. I don't know. We'll do something. We'll figure something out. But yeah, that was a ton of fun. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of these games, good and bad. Like, I'm hoping to uncover some, because I probably have not touched every single Nintendo game. There are definitely some that I just never encountered, and some that if I have played them, it's for like 40 minutes over the just like the first 10 minutes 4 times or something like that. Is how a lot of that stuff ends up working out. So, yeah. So I'm looking forward to dipping back into this stuff and wondering, like, man, I wonder if this would be worth. Would this be fun to do for Game Boy games someday or something? I don't know. Anyway, it was super fun. I'm sure that I will be cursing it about midway through when it's just like, oh no, all of these games are miserable. But yeah, we'll have some fun. Why don't we take a quick break and we'll come back, and then I'm gonna try out this wrestling drink. Wrestling drinks after the break. Stay tuned. Did you know that traditional bed sheets can harbor more bacteria than a toilet seat? It's true, and it can lead to acne, allergies, stuffy noses. It's just gross. Miracle Made offers a whole line of self-cleaning, eco-friendly bedding, such as sheets, pillowcases, and comforters that prevent 99% of bacteria and require 3 times less laundry. Wow. They've also got self-cooling properties to inspire better quality sleep. They use silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA. So Miracle Made sheets are thermoregulating and designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long, so you get better sleep every night. And they're self-cleaning. That same silver prevents up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresher 3 times longer than other sheets. That's right. No more gross odors. And hey, all of this would be pointless if they didn't also have luxurious comfort and quality. But you don't have to pay the high price tag of other luxury brands to feel as nice, if not nicer, than the bed sheets used by some 5-star hotels. And they're designed for your skin. Stop sleeping on bacteria, you know what I mean? Getting your pores all clogged up, having your weird sweaty nights and breakouts and acne. Stay clean and sleep clean with Miracle. Go to trymiracle.com/Jeff to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use the promo code Jeff at checkout, you'll receive 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed by a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/Jeff and use the code Jeff to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/Jeff to treat yourself. And thanks to Miracle Made for sponsoring the episode. Okay, we're back. Let's crack this open. Let's light this candle. I had to order. They at least they were having a like buy one get one 50% off sale. So there was that, but I had to buy 2 cases of C4 In the new WWE flavors, this is Berry Power Bomb. The other ones are, I don't know, Raspberry Ring Boy Scandal. I forget what the other one is called. But this one is Berry Power Bomb. Like the other C4s, it does say Super Brain right here, which is fun. And as far as I can tell, the WWE-ness of the can itself is that the C4 is like, well, I don't know, it's got like an icy texture on the logo or something, like a diamondy kind of thing. But then it just has the like logo over here, and then it just says "Then, Now, Forever, Together," which is the WWE slogan, which is dumb. The together, I think the together part is the part that's dumb. They added that relatively recently. I think it's stupid. Other than that, this looks like a pretty standard can of C4 Ultimate, meaning it's 300 milligrams, like the other Ultimates. Those are the black can C4s. And it says it's Berry Power Bomb. This is the red one. The other one's the blue one. I don't know. I feel like if they were going to do red and blue, that maybe they could have been like, you know, this is the Raw one, this is the SmackDown one, but then maybe people would have been like, I'm not buying the Raw one. It's only good for the first 45 minutes, and then it's fucking garbage. Whereas at least the SmackDown one is good in the first 20 minutes and good in the last 20 minutes. Let's try this out. The best thing about watching Monday Night Raw, the best part about watching it is that like it's none of it matters, and so you just get to turn it off. And you're like, oh right, I think I made it 40 minutes in last night watching it, and I was just like, I don't need to watch. I have no reason. I can just turn this off. I can just turn this off. This is great. It's great when the wrestling is bad enough that you're just like, not that the in-ring, you know, whatever. Like the wrestlers wrestle and they wrestle well. It's not about the talent. It is about the characters. And I'll just play it. This nightmarish Vince Russo thing from years ago is like weirdly right. I don't know.
All right, everybody, here I am, Vince Russo, and just like I promised, listen, every Monday night I sit in this exact office and I waste 3 hours of my life watching Monday Night Raw.
Okay, I'm going to turn that off. I can't deal with it. All right, we cracked this open. Smells like a berry, like a generic berry, because, you know, it's like the other one is a raspberry flavor, and so it's weird that if you told me this one was raspberry, I would believe you. I thought they should have gone, well, I guess they already make a cherry. Yes, chewable vitamin berry is definitely the vibe coming off of this. Let's but also like there's some kind of weird stink in here. There's nothing on my hand. I was like, oh man, did I fuck up changing a diaper and my hands stink? What's going on? There's something smells off about it, but whatever. I don't normally huff the drinks like this, like it was canned air, Spaceballs style. So I don't know. Let's try it. This is like it's okay. This is fine. It's like a It's like the C4 Skittles drink, but missing something. But it tastes a lot like that. It tastes like the Starburst one that they did, actually. This actually it's not a strawberry. It's just kind of a generic berry. But also, there's a. It tastes a lot like the C4 Starburst cherry, but it's not a cherry flavor per se. It's not unlike a cherry. It is more like a berry, if you know what I mean. But like that very generic, just like it's berry, like without ever getting into what types of berries we're really talking about here. Which I wish I could place like a, here's the berry they're trying to, but they never say, right? Why don't they just say it's boysenberry or it's. Now I need to go on a berry quest and eat a bunch of different berries to figure out which berry tastes like this. Yeah. It's but this is fine. I don't know. I would not. This is if you look on the list here, some of the like I'm comparing it to drinks that are incredibly high on the list. But it's not the benefit though is that unlike the C4 Starburst Cherry, this is an ultimate, and so it has 300 milligrams of caffeine instead of, I believe, the 200 milligrams found in a normal one. So this is actually, we should probably denote here that the number 2 is actually technically, I should update that on the list that actually matters. Here, hang on. That's an ultimate fruit punch at the number 2 spot. It's good, but it's very flat. It's very there's kind of nothing to it. And that's fine. It's you could absolutely drink this, but I think if you were going to go get a C4 Ultimate, we do have fruit punch at number 2 on the list. And if you were not looking to go I think the orange cream is a really solid C4. Mango Foxtrot pretty good as well. Frozen Bombsicle. This is actually, again, Frozen Bombsicle is another one of those kind of generic flavor names. This is probably right in this lane here, but it is very similar. It's very similar to like 3 other flavors of C4, where I would put it kind of in the same like bucket as like the Skittles, somewhat similar to Frozen Bombsicle, and a little bit like the Starburst Cherry. Like this tastes a bit like there's almost like a Starburst base to this. Like if there was just a generic berry Starburst, it would taste like this. And so it's strange. This feels like they should have done more. I guess like you have to imagine that just like these business transactions come together and they're like, oh yeah, we'll put our name on a couple flavors of your drink. And they're like, great. Here are the 5 flavors we have in development. Do any of these strike your fancy? We're thinking these 2 are really good fits. They're testing well, berry and raspberry. And then, whoever's running licensing at WWE goes, fucking, I don't care. Like, yeah, sure. Are they good? Are they going to be good drinks? Will they sell? Great. Yeah, let's do it. And so you might think, but you might think that like the crossover branding that they would be like, oh, this is going to be extra special because we're you know, doing this licensing deal and we want these to be, you know, whatever. But like, yeah, it's just another C4. I don't feel like this captures the flavor of the WWE very well. It's a positively solid energy drink. There's nothing wrong with it. It is maybe a little generic. And I would say in the C4 line, I think it's flavor-wise not as good as many of their other flavors. But as an ultimate, it is 100 mil. You know, it is more caffeine than most of the other C4s on our list. If I had to describe it using a WWE match, it's I don't know, man. It's what is it? It's you know, it's like the Alpha Academy versus the Street Profits. Like you watch it and you're like, this is great. You know, I have nothing bad to say about this, but I feel like this is a match with like zero stakes and there's like not a lot, you know, like they're really good in the ring and they're like pretty solid characters. But there's kind of just like nothing behind it, you know. There's like nothing happening here, I guess is what I would say. Like it's just like someone needed to fill a spot on the show and said this will be a good match, and they're right. It is a good match. Is it like going anywhere? Not necessarily. So, but where does it go on our list? Is the actual question. I think, you know, Freedom Ice is another ultimate flavor. And so that one is 300 milligrams. Where again, the most of the baseline C4s here. I'm not sure about the Smart Energy. What the deal is with that one? If that's like how different that formulation is from the regular C4s. Like I don't know. I'm gonna eventually have to go get a degree in beverage sciences in order to truly keep the list moving. So I don't think this is as good as C4 Energy Original Skittles, but it's in this ballpark for sure. It's like probably somewhere in that range. It's better than the Rise Fuel Sunny D and the Rise Fuel Kool-Aid Tropical Punch. Partially by virtue of like I think C4 is like from an energy drink, from a chemical perspective, from a like get it where you live, like let's get some stuff done type thing. I think C4 is quite good at it. And I'll say that when this Smart Energy Black Cherry, when I bought a case of those about a year ago, well, over a year ago now, the first few of them fucking made me crazy, like in a good way. But I was wired, man. I was like, there was like the, like, okay, all right, like the tingles up the back of your neck type thing. After about 3 cans, that stopped happening. But you know, that's the last time I felt anything. Anyway, let's get this on the list. It's you know, it's right there with Freedom Ice insofar as it's just kind of like it's good. It's not, you know, it's like if you had one of these, you could I'm okay. Like I had to buy a case of these and I'm okay with that because these drinks are totally fine. And but I'm going to say that this is let's say C4. What are these technical? Okay, so C4 Ultimate WWE Berry Power Bomb. And there you have it. It's our new number 28, which is high on the list. It's a solid drink. It's not necessarily exciting. And yeah, I would, again, I would recommend plenty, and in fact, I do, plenty of other C4 flavors. And if you are looking to get an ultimate C4, which has, again, the increased caffeine content, I think that fruit punch is pretty hard to beat. Though I did just drink a Rockstar Zero fruit punch yesterday, which is the number 1 on our list. And it's that's in the right spot. This is just a damn delicious drink. I wish that the Rockstar Zero had 300 milligrams of caffeine, because that would be nice, but alas and alack, it has not happened. Anyway, congratulations to Cody Rhodes. I don't know. I'm gonna shake this drink's hand in the ring at the end of the match. Go, I respect you. And then everyone's gonna make a big deal about it. Anyway, moving on. What else is going on in video games? The Payday 3 beta ran for a while here. I think it maybe is done today, or I think it maybe only ran a week. Anyway, I played some of the Payday 3 beta, and I went into it with high hopes, because Payday 2 has been a very popular game amongst the sort of people who would play a Payday 2, if you know what I mean. No, like Payday 2. I'll just quickly recap my issues with Payday 2. It's a great game that has really terrible onboarding and is really impenetrable. If you are a player that is coming into it and going, what's this Payday about? And you go to try to play it and you match-make into a match. A lot of the people playing it are not there for you to learn the game. They are there to run these things over and over again. They know exactly how. In my experience over the last several years of, once every year or two installing Payday 2 and going like, let's check out, there's so much more DLC, let's get it going. And having the literally exact same experience of like, these players fucking don't want anything to do with me. There's the communication tools in game are not great for telling me what I need to be doing or what I should be doing as a member of my team, blah, blah, blah. And so it's a game really built for people that are playing with friends. And running those things over and over again, I guess. And so it's, it's a co-op game that I think, again, if there were ways to, and I don't know what those solutions to this problem really are. I might throw out things like better in-game nonverbal communication tools, ways to prevent players from kicking me out for just being a new player. Like, oh, you joined and then the other 3 players clearly know each other and they know what they're doing, and then you trip an alarm and they kick you all out, or they just quit. And you're like, oh, okay. How am I supposed to learn this game? How am I supposed to get into this? Because there are things about a bank robbery game that I would be extreme. When they announced Payday 1, I was like, oh, fucking finally, Gearbox couldn't fucking get it done. So here's Heat the game here. Like, someone finally is making a heist game. Like, yes. So like, very exciting. And so, but again, the experience in game is extremely alienating in a way that doesn't leave you a lot of methods to learn what you're doing wrong or what you're supposed to be doing. Unless you go out there and you find 3 other players and go like, all right, let's bang our heads against this and have fun with it. But like, that's not, I don't have, that was never an option for me. No one else I knew was like, yes, I will play Payday 2 with you. They were like, what is this bullshit? And I was like, okay, fine. So it's an amazing concept. And I think when you see it executed well, you're like, yeah, there's a really awesome game there somewhere, but it's layered. Like, you really have to dig to get it. And you have to bring a group to help dig. And so going into Payday 3, with that stuff on my mind, I'm like, yes, okay, now like this is a good time for them to rebuild a lot of this stuff and address the things that make it so impenetrable for new players. And then you fire up the beta and it just drops you into the one mission that's in there, and you're like, oh, okay, this is Payday. This is sure this you really are making another Payday game. And so it's a beta, and so maybe there's a lot of stuff that's not in the beta that's in the full game, and whatever else. So like that is still my hope. And it's out in like 6 weeks. My hope for Payday 3 is that they find a way to crack that. And I hope that maybe they're not. Maybe they don't even care. Maybe that's not even something that's on their list, because they're just like, whatever, Payday 2 was so popular, all we need to do is like fucking update the engine and add like a handful of more mechanics, and people are going to keep playing it because they've been playing Payday 2 for the last decade. Like, we're good. If 80% of those players come over in the first 18 months, whatever, who knows? I don't know what the percentage, but if some good percentage of those players make their way over to Payday 3, we will be fine, and we will sell DLC for another 10 years. I don't know if maybe that's their plan. And they're just like, whatever, we need a tech upgrade, but otherwise we're making the same game. I don't know. But I look at it as something where I'm like, this is something that would be really, I would love to play something like that. I think maybe if the music was better and there were different aspects of, but also like if just there were better, in a post, I guess, like Apex Legends world, in-game communication without voice chat has become, I think, more of a not that Apex was the first game to do it or anything crazy like that, but they did such a good job with it that I think it made a lot, like people started to go, oh, okay, this could work. This makes a lot of sense. This ping system, this and that. And so some system like that to prevent people from having to get on voice chat with strangers, because I just don't think that that's something that people are going to do in a matchmaking scenario. And yeah, there's I'm sure that there's some ping system in there already. Better indicators about what you're supposed to be doing. Like some kind of training wheel type thing. Some kind of thing that's just like, hey, listen. For the first 20 heists, or, until you hit level 10 and you're playing the beginner heists playlist, we're going to give you these. You're going to see through walls, and you're going to see the objectives, and you're going to see things that, that you won't see when you graduate to normal Payday, or, just something like that, or just some way for that game to be a little less intimidating. They have had tutorials and stuff before, but it never, they never were good enough to really get you into the thing. So I don't know. The Payday 3 beta looks a whole lot like Payday 2, and it doesn't look like any of the things that I'm coming to it hoping that they are addressing are being addressed at all. But again, it's a beta. We don't know what the actual onboarding looks like. They're just trying to test network shit. And so, clearly it's not going to have all of the early game stuff in it. So maybe there's some big early onboarding thing that's going to make everyone a Payday Pro, and this will be a thing that actually helps get new players into that franchise. I don't know. We'll wait and see. But the beta, like, I ran the one heist that was in there like 3 or 4 times. It was just like, all right, for a heist that you're setting up is like, from a story perspective, they're like, well, you got to get back on your feet. So here's a really small time bank, and it's not going to be a big deal, and it's just a little bank, and who cares, man? You just got to get your feet wet out there in the crime game once again, because it's been a while. And then you trip the alarms, and like 3 seconds later, there's like snipers on the rooftops across the way. You're like, for a small bank, they sure are fucking ready to like throw 1,500 cops at you and snipers and all this other stuff. Like, it's ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous. Like this small time bank, you're like, all right, we got to thermite through to the floor and do all this stuff. It's like, this is not as small town bank as you maybe as you may be led on early on, lady. Which is, it's ridiculous, but I don't know, video games, they're ridiculous. I finished Viewfinder. Viewfinder, if you are not familiar, is a first-person puzzle game. It is, we'll say it's in the vein of something like a Portal or something like that, where you're solving puzzles to make your way through an environment. In this case, you have a camera or you find photos in the world. And so in Viewfinder, if you take a photo and then hold it up to the environment and let go, that photo becomes part of the environment. And so you can use that to, like you can take a picture of the sky and then hold it up in front of a wall and make the wall disappear. You can, take a picture of a bridge and move it over to a gap and then place it there. And then now you've got a bridge to get across. And you can rotate the photos. You can do this and that. And so that's the basic mechanic of it, is you altering the geometry of the world around you by holding up photos and letting go. That concept works so well and is done in such a freehand kind of free form way, because you would think about that as just like, oh well, there's going to be, they'll put you on rails and you can really only release a photo here and here but you can do it anywhere in the world, and it works. And that's not going to necessarily solve the puzzle for you unless you place it in the right way and all. But like, you're making janky, weird you're making half a bridge disappear and hopping over this. And like, you're doing a bunch of janky, weird shit in these levels as you go. It's not pretty when you place these pictures down and wipe out half a bridge and replace it, or rotate a photocopier upside down and place it in the world so you can photocopy some photos and place those photocopies down. There's a lot of, they build on it in some interesting ways. And some ways that are maybe not as interesting. They kind of, it's a game with 5 worlds, and each world kind of lays on some additional mechanics and rules as you go. Like, you will eventually find these floors and walls and stuff made out of like a purple material. And you cannot take pictures of those things. If you take a picture of those things, it will come out a blank photo, or a photo of the sky behind it, rather. You're like, oh shit. And so there's a lot of different mechanics like that along the way. And so each world is kind of, a lot of it is spent introducing you to this new mechanic. And so the game never feels like it actually gets going. It never feels confident in like the player to like really let them loose with these mechanics and solve some tougher puzzles. There are some optional challenges you will find along the way, where you can again, they're optional challenges, and they are a little bit more difficult, but not that much. And there aren't that many of them. And so I finished the game and finished all the optional challenges. I didn't find there's like collectibles and stuff that I never really kept an eye out for. The game just never gets challenging in a fun way. It feels like it spends so much time introducing you to, like, here's the new mechanic in this world, and like, now there's sound waves, or whatever the thing is. And then you finish that world and move on to the next one. And you're like, oh, okay. I guess I'll never see that again, until I get to the end and they throw them all together into one final challenge that's not that difficult. And so that was really frustrating, because I think that there is an all-time, like, the mechanic is so good. And when you see how it can be used and somehow some of these different puzzles are built, there is a game here that is like an all-time greatest, like, puzzle, first-person platformy puzzle thing. If it just had like more, if it just had like, okay, now here's like 20 more levels that make you think about those mechanics, you know, interspersed in each world or something that really kind of like go like, okay, now that you know what you're doing, here's something truly devious. It never throws that at you. It never goes, here's the fucked up thing. And that's really disappointing. That's really disappointing. Because the mechanic looks so cool, and when you're playing with it and things are really cooking, you're like, I'm having a great time. This is, man, I'm really getting through it. And I don't think I don't think I'm like some fucking wizard. You know, I'm not like some mega smart puzzle man or what. I'm like, maybe I am, you know. Maybe there are people that are having a ton of trouble with it, and I don't mean to demean their experience or whatever, but it really just feels too easy. And it feels like it just never gets going, you know? So it just feels like it never kind of gets out of first gear or something. And then it's got a storyline along the way, and I think that what they're going for like what the point of the story is and how it wraps up at the end, I think that stuff is fine. But I think a lot of the dialogue and a lot of the character stuff along the way, there's not a ton. I think a lot of that stuff is pretty ham-fisted and not done super well. So that's probably the other thing. You know, if it just, you know, if it was a little more confident in itself or whatever, if it had more, you know, again, if it iterated on these concepts more and gave you another pile of levels to where it's like, okay, you understand how to take the picture, you understand how to rotate the picture, you understand how these sensors work and this, and you know, it was weird getting like, you know, almost to the end of the game and having puzzles that you just look at and go like, oh, I just snapped this photo, put it here, but do this, bop, 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 and now we're moving on. And that became frustrating. There's a I guess an art to it, I guess I would say, because like they're sometimes well-made puzzles aren't necessarily difficult to beat per se, but when you do beat them, it makes you feel smart. Like there are aspects of Portal, and Portal's not that, especially by the standards of some of the games that came after or whatever, but like Portal is not a difficult game. But they do a good job, and some of it is the way that the dialogue and stuff treats different scenarios. Like Portal does a really good job, and I think this is something that Portal 2 did not do quite as well. Portal 1, I feel, is really good at making you feel like you are incredibly smart as you play through it. As you're like, oh man, I figured that out, and I did this, and of course, oh man. And the reality of it is like, oh, there's like subtle hints as to like, hey, a portal goes here, dumb. You know, like they're really good at that in Portal 1. Portal 2, I don't think is as like smooth of an experience as Portal 1, and there were a lot of cases in Portal 2 where when I finished some of the chambers, you know, like when I got past some aspects of it, instead of feeling like, oh man, I'm so smart, like I felt like an idiot. Like Portal 2, there were aspects of it that just, you know, it's not like it's more dramatically difficult than Portal 1. They give you a few more mechanics to play with, but that's not where the difficulty comes from per se. It's more just like parts of the environment are maybe like a little, you know, because, you know, Portal 2 has a more varied environs, I suppose, than the first game. That you would just end up in a situation where you're just looking around more going, what the fuck is going on? And I think I did that a lot more in Portal 2, going like, wait a minute, than I did in Portal 1. Viewfinder, I think kind of is somewhere in the middle. Like there are aspects of that game, there are aspects of Viewfinder where you're like, oh man, I figured that out so fast, I'm so good. But then as you keep doing that and doing that, two things happen. One, you feel like you're blowing through this stuff because you are. That game's 4 or 5 hours long. It's not a long game. You feel like you're blasting through the content. You're just like, all right, whatever, man. Like, here's another easy puzzle. Bop, 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 bop. The second thing that happens is there are a couple of things in that game where you got to stop and look at and go, what the fuck am I looking at here? And so, because that's something of a rarity, or because that was something of a rarity for me, then you have these moments of just like, oh, I'm a fucking idiot. I can't believe I like it's this feeling of overthinking the puzzles, you know, and you're like, oh, I must have to do this and this and this. And then you realize like, oh no, it was like the plainest, simplest, most like low level solution, just like bop, bop, done. I was overthinking that, you know, and yeah, I don't know. Like you feel like you feel like you're cheating a bunch of the puzzles by the time you're done. Let's Football CEO says that, but like not in a good way. I think sometimes Portal 1 would do that, and you would feel like, oh man, I solved that in such a cool, weird way, and you're like, no, but instead the game feels like it's built for that. And Portal 1 is an, you know, it's an unfair comparison point in a lot of ways. But again, it's the reason I'm bringing it up is because I think that with more, you know, like with a better story, with like a better told story, even like the story itself is fine. Just the characters and some of the audio logs and some of the things you're finding are just like, ugh, not done all that well. From like a voice actor standpoint, there's just stuff in there that I'm just like, I don't really like the voice acting in that game very much at all. But the reason I like bringing up Portal 1 is because I really think that like Viewfinder, again, there's a version of Viewfinder that is a much more favorable comparison to a game like Portal. That you're like, this is right up there with, instead it's just like, yeah, this is a solid one of those. You wish it was better, and I wish that it, you know, again, had just kind of more going for it, and or more in it, rather. Not more going for it, but just like they spend so much time showing you what the heck to do and not enough time just letting you do it. And that's frustrating. I don't know. There was like one puzzle in the entire game that required a little outside the box thinking that I had not done previously. And that was neat, but also it made me wonder like, oh, was I supposed to solve some other previous puzzle in this way so that I knew that you could do this when I got to this part? Or is this just in here and there's nothing else like it in the rest of the entire game? It's like one puzzle that feels completely different than anything else I had seen in the entirety of the rest of the game. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know you could do that. I guess that makes sense that you could do that, but all right. Okay. And so that was a weird one near the end, involving a watermelon, I suppose I will say, for people who have played it, but without getting more specific than that. You should see it. You should really see Viewfinder. Go watch the trailer for it, but really, I think that the mechanic of just like altering the world with these photos is so good. It's so cool. That it's worth seeing for yourself. Like, even with these caveats, I still think it's definitely worth checking out. It's short. It's a little easy. Voice work and the little kind of, you know, the moment to moment voice stuff could be more engaging and done better, but it's still really cool. I'm glad I finished it. But yeah, you know, it's another game in that same vein of like a superliminal quantum conundrum, a little antechamber in there, perhaps. Not enough people remember Antechamber. I think, you know, like Antechamber still runs on modern PCs. It's a little, you know, it's getting up there in years. like, what, like 9 years old now? If you haven't played Antichamber, I think you should play Antichamber, because Antichamber, yeah, it's getting up on like a decade old or something. If you are into this type of puzzly first person game, platformer-ish, what, I think Antichamber is so well made. It is when Antichamber is when people who write about video games learned the term non-Euclidean geometry, and we couldn't stop using it. But it's yes, Walrod in chat is right. It's hard to come back to mid playthrough. So if you've got a save from a lot of years ago or whatever, you just wipe it and start again. It's awesome. I did everything there was to do in Antichamber. It's so good. It's so good. And I feel like it got talked about a lot that year, and then the developer kind of vanished. And he's been back on Twitter lately talking about making something new. And I would love to see whatever that ends up being. But if you haven't played Antichamber, I think it's still worth going back and taking a look at Antichamber if you like this style of like puzzly, weird perspective like first person game, in the vein of whether it's, Portal or Viewfinder or Superliminal or any of this other stuff that with the Witness, like what have you. I think Antichamber is fucking great. It's so good. Just an amazing visual style, just so cool. Like the things I won't say any more about it. You should check out Antichamber if you have not checked out Antichamber. Another game you should check out, Street Fighter 6. Have you heard of this? They made a 6th Street Fighter game. And it is fantastic. Oh! Evo, the Evolution 2023 happened over the weekend. There was a fighting game tournament. And I spent a little bit of time watching Street Fighter 6 as a part of that tournament. I accidentally watched some Guilty Gear for a while as well, and was just like, I kind of like this game, but I don't know that I like watching it be played. Man, it was really fun. So they did top 6s instead of top 8s for the final games, for whatever reason. And so I watched the top 6 for Street Fighter, and I think I watched from like top 24 down to top 6 by the time they were done. I watched a few hours the day before, and then watched the final day of Street Fighter 6. It was mind blowing to watch. This game's like 2 months old now, and watching the way people are playing it. It was great. It was really great. Watching people play Street Fighter 6 and making me want to play more Street Fighter 6, which is not always the case. Watching people watching high level fighting gameplay can also be incredibly discouraging, because I think sometimes you watch some of that stuff and you're like, fuck, man, I'm never gonna, like, there are systems here I'm just never gonna understand, and there's just stuff in this game I'm never gonna be good at, and I'm just walking away from it now. But like, I think Street Fighter 6, like watching the systems in Street Fighter 6 be played by people who are much smarter about this stuff than I will ever be, it's a real eye opener in terms of how conservative my Street Fighter 6 game is. And I think a lot of people perhaps came away from it going like, oh man, all these players are just like, they're using all the resources. They're going into burnout and fucking winning fights, and they're not afraid to use their shit. And you're seeing moves. Yeah. And nothing about it. It's a game for the mind, I guess, is what I would say about the game right now. Because as I watched it, And there was one player who played a fair amount of Luke in the top 6. But he also had an insane Blanca that was just like, I've not seen a lot of Blanca in that game. Yeah, Mena RD, who made it to the finals. I still need to go back and watch the finals. For a while there, I was thinking like, well, maybe I'll avoid the who won. I fell asleep. It was such a fucked up weekend of like, my sleep was so bad. The kids, my son kept waking up, and so I got dog shit for sleep. And so I was watching top 6, and I see like, okay, it's gonna be Mena, it's gonna be Angry Bird in the finals here. Let's see how it goes. And then they started, and I don't remember what happened. At some point I fucking went, huh, shit. And they were on, and like, dude was on stage saying, thanks everybody for coming. Eva, fighting games are great. I'm like, shit, I gotta go to bed. And so I still have not watched the actual final. But the cool thing about Street Fighter 6, and I did not feel this way about 5 or 4. A lot of the stuff they were doing is, I'll say, attainable, or rather, when you see them do it, you see what they're doing, and you go, I know how that works. I know I could do that. Like, sometimes in fighting games, you see some shit and you're like, I don't even know what they're doing here. I play this game and I don't know what they're doing here. But like, watching Mena's Luke, I looked at it and went like, oh, you can I didn't know that you could chain all this shit together. I didn't know that this combo was a combo. But looking at it, you go like, if I practiced that for 1,000 hours and could fucking like, I could probably do that. Would I know when to do it? Would I have the mind to do it right and be able to know when to bust it out? And would I have the reflexes to do all that shit? Like, probably not. But the systems in Street Fighter 6 are very easy to wrap your mind around. And so there's a lot of stuff in there that you look at and go like, well, I know how these systems work, generally speaking. I definitely learned a few things just strategically from watching. But like, that was the cool thing, is watching it and learning things strategically and going like, okay, I am not using the drive rush at all, which is like it's like a fast dash that you can use to close the gap. I had never seen anyone... I've barely seen anyone use it in the ranked games I've been playing. And so I have not seen a lot of drive rushes. But you watch that and you go like, oh, everyone is drive rushing all the fucking time. And like, and knowing the ranges of their characters with like pinpoint precision of like, I'm going to drive rush up to this point and then immediately fucking stop and go low, medium kick. And you're just like, the crazy fucking run up poke and run up throws, and you're seeing people just like walk up and throw a fucking guy, and I'm like, I do that sometimes, and sometimes that works because that's how it's a game won in the mind and lost in the mind, as opposed to the controls. That the controls matter as well. One modern player made it into top 6, which would have made for a real interesting conversation. And these guys have been playing for a long time, but he just went modern controls with Chun-Li. And it was fascinating to like watch that and go like, oh, that's really ruthless that you can just like tap a button and bust this out. But he did not win. He did not win. But like which would have made for like, if you're a fan of discourse, which don't be, but if you're a fan of discourse, like there was a part of me that was just like, oh, I hope this dude wins because that'll just like fucking destroy all online conversation about this game for the next 6 months. Yeah, it was fascinating. You see people, and this has been happening for a while now. Like, this is not the first Evo that you've seen this, but it was... Maybe it was the first. So if you're not familiar, modern controls in Street Fighter 6 kind of assigns your specials and supers to button presses. Instead of doing double quarter circles on the stick and hitting this and, like the way that, fighting games have been for a good long time, they have come up with this modern control scheme, which is, they've tried to balance it out in a way to like, okay, you're not going to do as much damage, but You can just tap this button and do a super that would normally you'd have to like charge back down and then go down forward, down back, and up forward, hit the button, like all of that. So, and it's a player who has been playing at a high level forever. Not, like I think when people think about modern controls, they think about people who have not played any Street Fighter coming in fresh and going, oh, okay. The idea of someone who has the mind for it saying like, no, actually, if I play modern with this character, I can this was now at a better advantage. This is there are different pros and cons of doing so. It's really fascinating. Really fascinating. Anyway, those archives are still online. You should go check out you should go watch the top 6 for Street Fighter 6. If you've played the game at all, you should see it. It's really fascinating. And I feel like I learned a lot, and I feel inspired to play more of the game. Because again, I think there's that can cut both ways, where you watch high level play. Like when I watch high level play of any Marvel game, for example, or any game that is trying, like Dragon Ball Fighters was this way as well. I just kind of throw up my hands and go, man, fuck this. I don't want to do this. I'm never going to be able to do this anyway, so it's not a point of me wanting to, but like, this is not how I want to, this is not the fighting game I want to play. And so you're just like, okay, I'm done. But man, Street Fighter 6, it's boots. They return to a boots on the ground fighting style. No, but the systems and stuff, I think, are very easy to read and very easy to understand, and they've really hit upon a great mix of just great systems for what to do with your meters, how your meters work, and all of that. Every game has to come up with their own shit, and Street Fighter 5 had the V triggers and V skills and everything else. This game, similar concepts, but handled differently in terms of how the meter works, and watching the way that high level players would think about their drive gauge, which is separated from your super meter, and it's a resource that you can spend to do the drive rush kind of run and some of the other things like that. There's a lot of really, again, it's stuff that you look at and go like, these are things that you have to think. This is all mind stuff. This is all strategy in the brain. This is all tricking your player into thinking, tricking your opponent into thinking one thing's coming and then hitting with another. And I think that the game is readable enough, even though that I've probably played, I don't know, 30 hours of Street Fighter 6, like ultimately not that much for the way that other people have been playing it. But I can still read all that stuff that was happening in those finals and go, oh shit, okay. Like some of it's crazy. Some of the Blanca stuff, like there's matchups that I don't know, like watching JP be played, which is the crazy character that can put all kinds of portals and spikes and weird shit all over the screen. I look at it and go like, well, this sucks. This would be a fucking nightmare to play against. So you still have to learn the goddamn matchups, and that's the thing. Even with modern controls, even with all of that, you still have to learn the goddamn matchups. And I don't know. I feel like a lot of the stuff in Street Fighter 6 is built in such a way that makes that feel attainable. That's not to say that I'm going to, be some competitive level player or anything like that ever. Especially because I'm currently banned from tournament play. Capcom has banned me from playing Street Fighter 6 competitively. They're worried that I will show up and win it, and so they've banned me as part of my agreement to get a copy of the game ahead of release. I had to agree that like, yeah, I'm fucking too much to handle. Don't let me go to Evo. So that's fair. That's fair. I would hate to show up and ruin it for everybody. And I'd hate to show up and ruin it for the sponsors, you know, to be a guy just showing up and being like, hey man, what were you guys playing some Street Fighter? I like that game. Let's play it. It would fuck up a lot for them if I didn't have a shirt with like 3 antivirus companies and burrito manufacturers or whatever on it. But it was a lot of fun to see. And Street Fighter 6 is a hell of a game. You should check it out. I think even if you don't play, if you have played fighting games, if you have enjoyed a fighting game in the past but maybe fell away from them, I might say that this is something that you should check out. Because it's fucking awesome. A bunch of cool announcements here. Let's get into the news. Today, a bunch of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle shit is being added to Street Fighter 6. And that's cool. It's being added to the, like, you know, because so there's a world tour mode, and also when you go into the lobby, you can customize your character and how they look there. And so it's not that they're adding the Ninja Turtles to the game as fighters and playable characters or whatever. It's that they're selling costume pieces and stuff like that for your lobby character, which can fight. You can make the lobby characters fight and all that stuff too. So it's not purely just for walking around. You do get to fight as a Ninja Turtle if you want, but it's not like they put all the moves from tournament fighters in there or anything like that. Yeah, that stuff, they announced that there, and I guess I think that stuff is in the game today. If it's not in there right now, I think it's coming today. I'm not sure, but they were supposed to be out the 8th. So that's pretty neat. They showed a trailer for the second DLC character, Aki, AKI. She looks mean. I don't know. They didn't really show her fighting. She kind of looks like Fang. And she has periods in her name like Fang did, right? So Reptile, Havoc, and Ashura are coming to Mortal Kombat 1. Reptile looks like a guy that is about to drop a really fucking problematic mixtape. This is okay. This is weird. Okay, I know what this is. Like freaking out over here because I had to get I had to buy a new burner phone because my old one broke. This is the phone I use to run Mixler on when I'm driving in the car, when I'm doing car live streams. And that phone, the other one of those got broken, so I had to buy a new one. Anyway, I set it up. It does not have. It started ringing, which is weird because it's just a data plan. It's not supposed to be able to accept phone calls. And so it started getting a phone call and I was like, what the hell is going on? But I have VoIP apps installed on it. And so that's what was happening. Anyway, sorry. That's a long-winded explanation for a dumb scenario. So yeah, Reptile. Yeah, he looks like he's about to put out a very like people are going to really love this mixtape, but they're going to be like, I cannot stand by a lot of the stuff that Reptile just said in this. It's not okay. But I do admire his ability to rap about lean. Reptile and Young Affiliate got together and they put out some stuff that I can't, is undeniable. But and also he turns into a crazy fucking reptile. So yeah, I don't know. Like if I had to describe it, like if you have not seen the trailer with Reptile in it, Reptile's almost like he looks like he would be a Robin. If this were an Injustice game and you looked at that dude, you'd be like, oh, is this like Nightwing, but he doesn't have his mask on? Like what's going on? Like he has a younger look to him. And also he can morph into a full-on fucking reptile for some of his moves. And so he looks pretty awesome. And then Havoc and Ashura are characters from the Xbox and PS2 era of Mortal Kombat, and they look cool. They're like, it's going to be interesting to see them try to do right, or I think they will. I think it'll be interesting to see them do right by a lot of these characters that I think are forgotten by a lot of more, by me for sure, but by a lot of Mortal Kombat players. But there are some who like have deep love and respect for the lore, for like that era of Mortal Kombat. Yeah, Serena showed up as a cameo. They showed Stryker as a cameo, which we already knew Stryker was going to be a cameo, but they show Stryker's part of the X-ray, where he just is walking towards a guy, just fucking unloading his pistol into them like a cop would. And it's fucking ridiculous. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more of that game. Well, whatever. I'm looking forward to that game coming out. I don't know how much more of it I need to see. I think they've shown enough of it that I'm like, yeah, I want to play that. I think my question, especially with the, they've got a beta starting up in another week or two here, for people who pre-ordered the game, I guess. But yeah, I am going to be curious to see how Mortal Kombat 1 does. I think that like it's Street Fighter 6 again, I think does a really good job with its control options and a lot of other things there to kind of widen the base of players that are capable of playing it. Mortal Kombat 1 is very tricky. It's very focused on you using your second character for combo extension and various things like that are going to require you to learn a lot about the way your two characters interact in ways that will be tricky and fucking hard, in the way that NetherRealm games I think have kind of been for a while, but like maybe another layer to it that you're like, this is crazy now. And so back in June when I played it, there was a lot of discussion about, expression and how expressive that combo system can be. And I felt that playing it. But if you're getting overwhelmed by someone who is better than you, you might not have time to express yourself in any way other than saying, fuck, goddamn, I've got a combo break. I got to break out of this combo. Shit. So I'm curious to see how they kind of find ways to make that work. I think, it's the sort of thing that I guess that's me saying that like when they ran that last network test beta, I got the fucking shit beat out of me over and over again, to a point where I was just like, fuck, dude, fuck. And so, the actual experience when they go on sale and they're not just like people that are self-selecting trying to opt into a beta, will be different, right? I mean, when that game goes on sale, there will be a lot of players who are not as good as the players who were in that beta, and matchmaking will be matchmaking, and we'll see how well it works. But like, I had a really rough time with that beta, to the point where I was like, this seems really good, but I'm getting fucked up in a way that is like making me want to not play the game. It's just like, I'm getting the shit. I'm not learning anything. I'm just getting fucked up. And so I'm curious. I'm really curious. I think that's again, I think that's, you think about Project L, the League of Legends fighting game or whatever, and some of its kind of roots and some of its concepts in terms of trying to make games easier, well, not easier per se, but like to make games more approachable, to make fighting games more approachable. We've often thought of Mortal Kombat as being one of the most approachable fighting games by default, because it had a big long story mode that was something that players could play, even if they weren't ever going to really mess with any of the competitive play. There was still so much other stuff for them to do that you're like, oh, well, this is still a really great fighting game for anyone to play. And yeah, I'm curious to see how it goes, because I just the trend, almost, it's weird to even think about it as a trend, but like, I just wonder, like, I wonder if there would be room for some kind of, whether it ends up being, not necessarily modern controls. I don't know, like Mortal Kombat is so focused on timing and juggles and all of that stuff, that's stuff that'd be really hard to just like put, like, it doesn't matter, the inputs are not difficult, right? Mortal Kombat it's back, forward, and a button. It's not double circle forward, which is not that difficult either, but hey, it's really about learning those systems and learning how those combos connect and learning how those attacks connect, and then learning like, okay, if I jump up after this, I can do this, this, and this, and then if I choose this cameo character, then I can do this, this, and this. And that stuff all seems really fun to me, a person who has been playing these Mortal Kombat games for a very long time. And I just wonder. I wonder how it will be received out there once it gets out there. Because I think some of the, and I don't know, like, maybe it's coming from people who have not played the game. But I did not expect there to be a reaction from some people, or, like, there was comments on the gameplay footage I posted on YouTube when I got that Mortal Kombat 1 footage back in June. There was a lot of people going like, well, can I turn off the other character? I was like, no. And you wouldn't want to, like you don't, like, there's a lack of understanding out there, I think, from a lot of players who have not played the game, because they're just like, I don't want to do any, I don't want to, this is some bullshit tag game, like this isn't Marvel. It's like, it's not Marvel. Like, is it a step in directions that you could maybe liken to Marvel? I guess, if you want to, but yeah, I don't know, man. I wonder if there will be people who are just like super against it, and or just, I don't know. The cameo system, I think, is so cool, both from a like lore and nostalgia perspective, but also from what it does to, like, once you start to understand it and how you call in those assists and how you make those things happen. Like, I think that really opens the game up to a lot of really crazy concepts and really crazy options. And yeah, we'll see how it all goes. I will say, from like a storyline perspective, like the way that they're reframing all of the characters that they've brought in so far, like this new design for Reptile, I think, is really cool. And there's just a lot of stuff there that I think I'm really looking forward to as like a longtime fan of the series. I think I'm just looking at it and going like, I wonder if this will be like less approachable than previous Mortal Kombat games, because people will not be able to wrap their mind around the air combo stuff. Because I think when Marvel and some of those games came out and started introducing those types of air combo things, I had a really hard time with it and never really wanted to learn it. And so I didn't, or eventually I kind of did. I learned enough to like, oh, okay, I see how this works, but I don't like it. And so I've never especially liked any of the Marvel games. They're flashy, they're pretty, they're neat, but I just don't like doing that stuff. Let's see. A couple, like, a more Evo kind of like game-focused announcements. Killer Instinct is back. Or rather, Killer Instinct is getting updated. This is not an announcement of a sequel or anything like that. But, Killer Instinct is apparently 10 years old, which is crazy to think about now. The franchise is older than that, obviously. But I mean, the third Killer Instinct game, James Goddard, who is still at Microsoft, I would have thought, like, hey, you got the fighting game guy, and then you made a fighting game. It's still there. Came back out to say, and I can think of a number of other people that I would have put out on that stage too. It would have been fun to see, but hey, the game is getting an update. It will run in 4K on an Xbox Series X. They are going to do a balance update, and he also mentioned kind of a lot of back-end work to improve things like matchmaking, and said that tournaments would be easier. And it looks like Iron Galaxy is back on the case here on this stuff. So I know that there's, I feel like that, you know, maybe it was Keats. It would have had to have been. It said like, if we could get one more update, there'd be some stuff that we would do or whatever. But I don't know. So yeah, anyway, they're going to do a balance update, which is cool. And then, Goddard kind of ended his little time on stage by saying like, and more Killer Instinct for the next 10 years. And then that was it. And you're like, wait a minute. Another 10 years of Killer Instinct? Like, is this just this balance update is going to carry the game for another decade? Or, hey, are we going to do this to get this game up and running? And then, hey, let's make a KI2 or 4 or whatever you want to call it. I think that would be cool. It's weird, there's a lot of, someone asked on Tumblr and I ended up talking about it a little bit because there's just so much weird. There's a lot of headwinds when it comes to fighting games on Xbox, when it comes to fight sticks on Xbox, when it comes to, Xbox only games at fighting game tournaments. Because then you got to bring an Xbox, or you got to bring more PCs, or you got to bring whatever. And I remember feeling like, I remember when they said, hey, we're making a new Killer Instinct. I remember that was the first game I played at E3 that year. I went right to the Microsoft booth and found Killer Instinct and played a handful of matches of it. I was like, okay, cool. I was never a big KI fan. I liked Killer Instinct 2 because in some ways it felt like Killer Instinct 2 made the game more playable. Like, just Killer Instinct 2 feels like they took KI 1 and injected just a little bit more Street Fighter into it in terms of just like, hey, we want more stuff that's not just you fucking hammering out these stupid combos. We want more of a more well-rounded game around that idea. And so it still had that stuff, and the combo system, I think, in KI2 was, I don't know, just more fun or something. It was just, I think KI2 was just more fun to engage with than the first game, across the board. And I think that the current KI, I think it is in the same boat of just like, hey, yeah, no, this is approachable. This isn't just the combo thing. So like we were talking with Marvel. Like when KI1 came out, I started learning how the combo system worked and everything. And, when it came to arcades and seeing it at trade shows and stuff, and I was like, okay, all right. Like I sort of learned how to play it. I would never say I was especially good at it, but I at least like got my head around the combo system and then decided I don't like doing this and never played KI1 ever again. Except on the Game Boy. That's the definitive port. And so, yeah, I did not expect to like KI2 when it came out, but I ended up liking it quite a bit more than I thought. But anyway, I would love to see them make another game. There's, quotes out there from Phil Spencer from a long time ago and, Matt Booty and such that they're just like, yeah, we would fucking love to, they didn't not say, yeah, we would fucking love. But, the sentiment is like, if we can find the right, like if things come together the right way, we would love to do more Killer Instinct. And so maybe things came together in the right way, I suppose. That now we're getting this update, which is cool. That'll be, because there's some cool late updates that Iron Galaxy did to Killer Instinct. Like the whole like AI lab system of like building your character and whatever else. Like there was a lot of really neat shit of like uploading your AI to servers and sending it out to fight and playing against other people's AI. There's a lot of really neat stuff there. And like fighting against those AI characters felt different than fighting against the in-game, just the CPU type stuff. And by the time that came to the game, I feel like if you weren't already into that game, it would, you probably missed it. But it was something that I think would have been cool for new players to see, because it was like, here's AI that sort of fights a little bit more like the players that you see, meaning we can find really bad players to, bad kind of drivatars or whatever to match you with, or whatever. And I think that might be something that new players would potentially appreciate. So it'll be neat to see this come out, and get this update. And I don't know if there'll be I assume that they'll have to update the PC version as well, to, whatever back end updates they're going to do, whatever balance updates, obviously they'll have to update that version as well. So that's cool to see. That's cool to see. It's felt long overdue for Killer Instinct to just get something. And so this is that something, and we'll see if this leads to another game. I think that'd be cool. I think that'd be really cool. Speaking of another game, we kind of knew this was coming. They had said as much. Like, hey, we're working on this game, but it still never. It felt like it was never going to be real. It felt like it was just never going to actually happen, because it was in development at one point and then wasn't, and there was just because of the way that their fortunes unfolded. It felt like we were never actually going to get a sequel to Mark of the Wolves. One of the Neo Geo's best perhaps the Neo Geo's best fighting game. Oh man, I don't know. Is Mark of the Wolves better than KOF 98? I love KOF 98. But KOF is such a weird, picking teams and all that other stuff, but Mark of the Wolves is an amazing fighting game. And they said, like, and at some point, some like animation, some sprites or whatever leaked out of like, oh, these were sprites that were intended for the Mark of the Wolves sequel. And you're like, okay, that sucks to see these and go like, God damn it, they should have made one of those. But SNK was going bankrupt, and SNK Play More and this and that. It was just a lot of stupid shit like that prevented us from getting that sequel back when it was initially being developed. So anyway, they said, hey, we're going to work on this. I wasn't really sure what form the game was going to take, but they tipped their hand here by announcing Fatal Fury City of the Wolves. And they kind of played some character audio that kind of lets you look at it and go like, okay, yeah, no, this is going to have the characters from Mark of the Wolves, generally speaking. Like, there was a lot of them kind of with their hand tipped there. And then they showed just a tiny bit of Rock Howard and Terry Bogard. Like more of a cell shaded look than a lot of the more recent SNK stuff. But other than that, not all that dissimilar from like King of Fighters 15, from like current SNK output. Like, it didn't look completely off brand or completely brand new, I guess I should say, compared to that stuff. Like, obviously there are new designs for the characters and whatever else, but like, you look at it and go like, oh, is this kind of looks like SNK taking whatever technology it's been using to make the KOF games and instead just making a Mark of the Wolves sequel. And so I don't know, man. There was some sick part of me, and of course it's not going to be this. Of course they're not going to actually do this. But like when they announced, hey, we're making a Mark of the Wolves sequel, I think somewhere back in some corner of my mind, it was like, oh, they're going to take all that art from that sequel that they were working on a long time ago, and they're going to make a new 2D fighting game. I think in the back of my mind, there was something that was just like, they're going to fucking do it. They're going to make the ultimate 2D fighting game. And it's not that. It's polygonal, like whatever. It looks fine. And I'm still extremely excited about the idea of, yes, this Kushnud butt going to come back with his fucking board, just plop down his fucking sign. So So yeah, man, City of the Wolves got announced. They did not have a ton of detail other than, hey, here's a couple of characters, and then also if you watch this trailer and look at the different things we are showing you, you will be able to infer a lot of other characters from the roster, based on some of the stuff they showed. So there's I don't know, man. It's almost an impossible task after all these years, because I think that Mark of the Wolves is such a legendary fighting game. It is such an incredible thing. Back when it came out, it was something that just felt so special. It felt like in so many ways, it felt like a step forward from a lot of the other games they were making. And, there was just something about that game, systems wise, and just the characters, and just it had a lot of megabits in that cartridge. It felt incredible. Just an awesome fucking game. Has to be one of the best fighting games of all time. It probably is the Neo Geo's best fighting game. I'm trying to think, because I love KOF 98 so much, so much. Samurai Showdown 2 is, I think, an amazing, that is is in the running for probably one of the top 10 all-time best fighting games, I guess. And what else, man? I like SVC Chaos. It's not a great, that's not a top, it's a, SVC Chaos is a weird disaster, but it's interesting to see. And I like Last Blade 1 and 2, I think are amazing games too. So whatever. I guess suffice to say that there are a lot of incredible fighting games on the Neo Geo. That's a bold statement, I know, but hey, here we go. Mark of the Wolves, I think there's just a level of quality to the animation and the art. I think that they simplified a lot of the systems. They found a good balance of the quote unquote SNK bullshit pretzel motion garbage, and finding ways to just no, we're going to simplify a lot of that stuff. It's still going to have systems upon systems, but it will be accessible and attainable and doable for a wider range of people. I think the characters and their moves in Mark of the Wolves are just fucking, it's a fucking badass roster of characters you want to use. That's something I can't really say about King of Fighters 98, because I've got 5 characters I care about in that game in terms of playing as them. But man, Mark of the Wolves is fun to just do randoms on, and just fuck it, man. Let's play as whoever. Let's learn some more fucking T-Zoc or whatever, there's so much fucking cool shit in that game, and it looks so good on a platform that did a really good job of making good looking fighting games. Mark of the Wolves is just a step ahead. And so I'm still thrilled to own a copy of that cartridge after all these years, for the $1,100 or whatever it is I paid for it in Japan all those years ago. Just an amazing game. And so yeah, City of the Wolves is coming, and I think it's a really hard game. It's going to be a hard game for them to make a sequel to, because Mark of the Wolves, again, legendary. It'll be hard to match that level of quality, I think. At least the level of quality that I think is in people's heads. Hasty Mofo says loose price for Mark of the Wolves is $3,000. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think I have a complete, I guess AES copy of the game. Home version. That's the AES. I can never keep straight the AES versus MVS thing. MVS is the arcade. AES is the home version. I have the home version. I think I also have an MVS copy of the game just loose. I'm not sure. I got to check. But yeah, I have a complete, open but complete AES copy of the game that I paid, like I said, $1,100 in, I don't know, what year? What year did I do that? 99, 98, 99, 2000, somewhere in there. Bought it for that much in Japan. Because I had already bought so many other Neo Geo games that you get to a point where you've bought all the cheap ones. And you're like, okay, well, I brought this money to Japan so that I could spend it on video games. And so I'm going to spend it on video games. And then, yeah, so I bought that Mark of the Wolves cartridge, and then it came out on Dreamcast, I think like less than a year later. I was like, oh, fuck. But I think so copies of Mark of the Wolves took a big dip in price around that time. But they bounced back. It's all good. Whatever. I didn't buy it as a fucking investment. I bought it because it's a fucking incredible game. And that's that's what I've got for news from Evo. That's the big stuff. You know, they showed some new Tekken stuff. Tekken still looks fucking awesome. I can't wait to play Tekken 8. And yeah. There's some other stuff that happened in the news, you know, a few things here and there. Red Dead Redemption has been announced for release on the Switch and PlayStation 4. That is coming out next week, next Thursday, for $49.99. It will include the Undead Nightmare DLC. Double 11 is the studio doing the work to put those versions out. The press release they put out, in fact, I can see if I can pull it up here to see exactly what it is that they said. Let's see. It's a new conversion by Double 11 Studios. The Switch and PS4 versions bring the two classic experiences together again for both new players and original fans to enjoy across modern consoles, including backwards compatibility with the PlayStation 5. So, yeah, they're gonna port the second Red Dead game to other consoles. You will note that the Xbox is not getting this port because the Xbox version of Red Dead Redemption is already playable on modern Xboxes through their backwards compatibility program. And so they're outsourcing this port so that they can have it on PS4 and Switch as well. People don't seem super thrilled about it because I think a lot of people were hoping that that this game would get a proper remake. Like, oh, let's do use the Red Dead Redemption 2 engine to remake Red Dead Redemption 1 and blah, 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 blah. No, they're not going to do that. This is, this feels like more akin to what they did when they put all those classic GTA games out again. And those were ports from like the Android version of the game or some fucked up shit like that. Those were, I know they did some work to try to fix those, but I feel like my understanding is that they never quite got there with those. Hopefully this will be a better experience than that, but yikes. $50 for digital versions. If you want a physical release of these, they will be coming out on October 13th. So there you go. One of my least favorite things is when, and it doesn't happen all that often, but one of my least favorite things is when publishers lean on backwards compatibility to be like, and you can play it on a PlayStation 5. It's like, it's 2023. But it'd be nice to see, well, whatever, who cares? It's a port, like how much more are they going to do to a native PlayStation 5 version of the game compared to the, PlayStation 4 running on PS5, it'd be the same. Because this, to me, seems like they are, whatever, it's a port. It will include the Undead Nightmare DLC, and they'll sell it for $50. And it will probably do just fine for them. This also is something I think they announced like the day before their earnings call. So, you know, in case you're wondering, like, why does Take-Two and Rockstar keep putting out ports of old Rockstar games? This is why. They got to make money, because GTA 6 is taking them a long time to make, I guess, is the answer, right? So they're just like, shit, what else can we do that will not cost us a lot of money to make, that we can shove onto more modern consoles? There you go. Because you demanded it, right? Modern Warfare 3 has officially been, I guess, teased and such. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 will be coming out on November 10th. They put out a little teaser trailer. It's red now. That's the vibe from the teaser trailer. Everything red. And there's some quotes, some little dialogue things from Price and some other characters in there if you want to try to figure out where the story is going. Yeah, not really enough to go on here. Some guy got a box in the mail from Activision with something kind of teasing the concept of slide canceling, which was something that was in the first Modern Warfare remake that they deliberately took out of Modern Warfare 2. That perhaps they are bringing back into the game. I don't know. Maybe that's just bullshit. But we will see. Other than that, it's kind of like I don't really know what you do with it other than make more of it. Season 5 of Call of Duty just started pretty recently, and Snoop Dogg is now in the game after we played a little bit of it last week, looking to get a look at Snoop Doggy Dogg. But he was not in the game yet. He was in the game as of, I want to say, was it yesterday? Day before? Anyway, I purchased Snoop Dogg. This is the second time I've purchased Snoop Dogg for use in a Call of Duty game, as he made an appearance in Call of Duty Vanguard, the World War II game. Here he appears as part of a 50 years of hip hop celebration in Call of Duty, and I guess they are also putting 21 Savage in the game. There was also, I guess, this was not part of their announcement when they put it out, but everyone seems very convinced that Nicki Minaj is also coming to the game at some point later. When you purchase Snoop Dogg comes with guns that shoot weed tracers. And it's perfect. I don't know. There's a lot of effects like that. I think when there's a Santa Claus character that, has different, they've done a bunch of different like silly effects for like tracers on the guns, and then also death effects when you kill a player. And so when you shoot someone with one of Snoop Dogg's weed guns, a big gold weed appears. Perfect. When you buy it, it comes with 2 Snoop Dogg skins, but they're just alternate colors of the same skin, basically alternate outfit colors. I think, I need to play some more of it. I think that the voice lines and dialogue in Call of Duty Vanguard were more ridiculous and more fun than what I've heard so far in Modern Warfare 2. But I will need to spend some more time using Snoop Dogg to tell you for sure, or for shizzle. As part of their 50 years of hip hop celebration, there's also you get some music, like they call them war tapes, and it's music that you can set up to play when you get in a vehicle in like Warzone mode, and it's like. There's you get one of that, you just get that for free by logging in, and there's a Public Enemy song, which is fun. So, it's part of their like 50 years of hip hop, whatever. It's kind of neat, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I think the Snoop Dogg skin in Vanguard, well, whatever. Snoop Dogg's presence in the World War II game was a little bit more ridiculous and fun kind of across the board, where it was maybe like the one fun thing in that entire game. And so it's a little less, I don't know. The outfit is not as fun. I think with his hat and stuff, like the skin in Vanguard, they should just put that in there as a bonus or something. Those skins and stuff will apparently carry forward into Modern Warfare 3. So at least they're not doing a thing of selling you a $20 Snoop Dogg that will be useless in 3 months. It'll be useless in 3 months and a year. Congratulations. As a part of this, they renamed, and I think all this stuff is indicative of a lot of the early reporting around this year's Call of Duty, where a lot of the early word was around, oh, it's just going to be an expansion. They're not going to sell a full-fledged game. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, this is a full-fledged game. We like to make money. But it sure did start as an expansion, whatever. And so maybe as another sign of that, the entry for Call of Duty on Steam has been renamed to just Call of Duty. And they put out a news post that says, all in one place, Call of Duty. Going forward, future Call of Duty titles can be played from the same location on Steam. This should make deploying to the battlefield even more straightforward, so you and your squad can worry less about where to launch and more about how to score your next victory. You can continue diving straight into Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 and Call of Duty Warzone from one central location, now represented by the Call of Duty logo. Call of Duty Vanguard, Black Ops, Cold War, and Modern Warfare and other Call of Duty titles will continue to be accessed separately on the favorites list and in your library. So it's funny because they did all this before announcing Modern Warfare 3. So they couldn't say, hey, when Modern Warfare 3 comes out, you're going to launch it from here. Instead, they were just like, old games still need to be launched separately, but we're putting all Call of Duty in one place, except for all of the other Call of Duty that's out there. It's in a different place, but all of it's in one place. It's very silly. Baldur's Gate 3 is out, or I guess I don't know. That game's been out for years, right? But it has exited early access. And if you find yourself ever wondering, I wonder if games, when they exit early access, if they get a big new bump of sales and interest. The answer is absolutely yes. It is done over, well, it is one of the biggest numbers of all time on Steam for concurrent players. They broke the 800,000 player mark. For like a single day total, like a total concurrence, which is fucking crazy. That is in one of the all time biggest top 10 all time biggest numbers. And that's awesome, especially for a game that's been kind of in early access. I think that I would be an interesting statistic. Would be the percentage of players who went like, oh shit, Baldur's Gate 3 is out, I should go buy that. And then went on to Steam only to find that they had indeed purchased it at some point in the past. Because I was like, oh, this is already in my library. Oh, right, I guess I bought it 3 years ago when it went into early access. And then it's such a weird, like, hey, it's a big story-driven RPG. Like, such a weird fit for early access. But that's how they did it. And, they that probably gave them the revenue coming in that it took to make this game in the fucking first place. They probably, if they had not had money coming in along the way, then maybe they would have been like, oh, we're going to take 2 years to make this game and it is what it is. Instead, they were able to spend 5 years on it. And by all accounts, made something fucking crazy. So yeah, I'm gonna definitely try it out at some point here. I've had it installed for a little bit here, and I need to create a Larian account because apparently it launches to a launcher, which made me very unhappy. I was like, well, fuck it. All right, I'll deal with this shit later. Yeah, I want to give it a go, but I know it's one of those things where the first session with it, I need to have a big chunk of time for it, and I just have not had that chunk of time just yet. So, So yeah, I'm looking to at least try to get into that at some point here. Sony has started testing out cloud streaming of PlayStation 5 games for a limited number of users. That news comes courtesy of videogameschronicle.com. Sounds like just a bunch of players got an email saying like, hey, you want to check this shit out or what? And they were able to check out a small handful of games, including, I guess, Sackboy is one of those games. The list of supported titles, according to this article, will reportedly include PlayStation 5 games from the PlayStation Plus game catalog and game trials, plus supported digital PS5 games that you already own. Probably the notable thing here is that the stream can run in 4K, and that's not something that Xbox's cloud streaming service can do. And back when back when they announced the feature was coming, said when this feature launches, cloud game streaming for supported PS5 titles will be available for use directly on your console. That means as a premium member, it'll be easier to jump into your favorite games without downloading them first on your PS5. As more games continue to launch on the PS5, we look forward to adding cloud streaming capability for PS5 titles in addition to the PS3, PS4, and classic titles that are already available for premium members to stream. So yeah, not a ton of new details here. It's just that it is rolling out. The thing I have heard from a couple of people that have had to try it out is that it's quite good, even at 4K. That it is something that that looks real nice and seems to run well. I have not seen it for myself, but sounds like it is at least capable of running well. And we'll have to kind of see. You know, that's always going to be the sort of thing that some games are going to be better suited for, or some games are going to be more tolerable to play with that input lag and whatever else than others, right? But yes, I've heard from a couple of folks who have been in this beta that that it was surprisingly good on the picture quality front. And in terms of responsiveness on the controls. So that's, we will wait and see how that ends up going. And what their overall capacity is, I suppose, in terms of how many, how many 4K streams can you run at a time off of their service before you start limiting players or whatever else. How much, what sort of data center rollout are they? They should just buy all the Stadia stuff. Google ain't using it. No, they signed some kind of agreement, right? I've received a press release this morning. Sega unveils first of its kind Fast Friends Forever campaign in celebration of Sonic and all his fans. This is, I don't know. I'm just going to read this here. Through the power of teamwork, together we can accomplish anything. Today, Sega has launched the new Fast Friends Forever campaign to celebrate Sonic the Hedgehog's amazing fans. We all know Sonic loves to go fast, but he also appreciates the importance of friendship, teamwork, inspiration, and loyalty. The initiative focuses on how Sonic and his friends demonstrate these values both in and out of the games. So I don't know, like I was saying earlier, I assume that this comes with some kind of legal defense fund to get Sonic's fans out of jail or something. Throughout the year, they will have a variety of events and activations, including a 4-panel digital comic series by Sonic's community of friends featuring talented artists from, I need to scroll over, around the world. The first release drops August 9th, followed by 14 more issues in the upcoming months. A Sonic Symphony World Tour featuring popular music from the games in LA, London, Paris, Dusseldorf, and more. That seems like a trap. That seems like you show up to that. You go to SonicSymphonyTour.com, you sign up for tickets, and when you show up, there's just a bus. They're like, get on the bus. We're taking you to see the Sonic show. And then you get on the bus, and you're like, what is going? You're going to Lompoc, fucker. 25 years, you sickos. You know what you did. And a Lego partnership. Legoland is offering a free kids ticket with purchase of an adult ticket. Good at any Legoland theme park in North America through the end of the year. As part of this. So, congratulations, Sonic fans. You sick fucks. Why don't we get into some emails? There's no button. There's still no button for emails. But this podcast at guard.bike is the email address you can send in your emails to. And if you do, I will read them. I will select some of them to be read on the show. What do you think about that? Let's get into it right now. As soon as I fade out this music, because it is too much. This show should just have a bed of music the entire time. Like real low in the background, probably. You know? I think that would be cool. Kyle writes in with the important stuff. One of your many Canadian fans here, have you had ketchup potato chips as popularized in Canada, and do you have any feelings about them? I have. I don't really care for them. They're all right. They're not the worst chip I've ever had, but I don't love them. I don't love those chips. We were talking about the playing of all NES games lately, and Julius has written in to say, I agree with you about the NES. The catalog of great games is not as deep as people think it is. I think Rockin' Cats is one of the best overlooked titles. Have you played it? I don't know. I don't know that maybe I have. I couldn't tell you a damn thing about Rockin' Cats. We will find out. We will play it. We will play us some Rockin' Cats and put it on a list at some point, but I couldn't tell you a damn thing about it. Yeah, I don't know. The NES is a weird thing. Like when you look at that library in total, there's just a lot of, it was a very popular platform, and as much as Nintendo's seal of quality prevented a lot of the glut of Atari 2600 style licensed garbage, like the stuff that we think about that ruined the video game industry. That's why Nintendo had the seal of quality and limited the number of games companies could publish in a year and all that other stuff. And I think that probably served them pretty well when we think about where the video game industry was at that time in the mid 80s. But yeah, I don't know. I think that there are some really great games available on that platform, and I think there's a lot of trash, but I also think there's a glut of games in the middle. You just go like, oh yeah, right, this, huh, yeah. Like any popular platform, you're going to end up with obviously a wide variance in quality, except for the Watara Supervision, a nice small tight library of bangers. No. Neil in Arizona writes in to kind of follow up on a question from last week, asking, do you think we see the day that Microsoft releases mainline entries for major franchises, Elder Scrolls, for example, exclusively to Game Pass? And it goes on to say, I guess it depends on how dominant Game Pass becomes. If things do trend in that direction, I worry about how devastating it could be for long-term game preservation and access when we're seeing entire TV series being removed from streaming services for shrewd business reasons. No, I don't. There's no downside to them selling those games. In fact, it's all upside. Even if the smart money is to subscribe to the service and play the games that way, like right now, they're selling the games on Steam, even though you could be playing them on PC Game Pass. They'll sell you the game on Xbox if you want to. Everything about the current Xbox offering, and you've heard them use the term time and time again, when it comes to talking about why they invested in the whole xCloud streaming infrastructure and what the value of Game Pass is and so on and so forth. Everything across the board to them is about choice. And everything to that, you will hear them use the term choice, or the word choice, over and over again. If you go back and listen to some of the interviews that they were giving around the time of the xCloud beta stuff and kind of the early rollout of Game Pass, it's all about meeting players where they are. And I think that that's something that, with Xbox not being in a leadership position compared to Sony in terms of install base and whatever else, they need to offer that. They need to offer players the choice. Now they'll still charge you $60 or $70 for those games, and they might not all be worth it or whatever else. But at the end of the day, they need to meet the players where they are. That's why their games are on Steam. That's why their games are also on their own app, the Xbox app built into Windows nowadays. They that is how they would love for you to play those games and whatever else, but they'll still sell you the games on Steam, and that doesn't seem like that's going to go away. And so I don't see a good business reason for them to stop selling those games. Right? Because for them, it's like, oh, well, we could get another Game Pass subscriber. But if you get like a fickle Game Pass subscriber who comes in on a trial and just plays this Elder Scrolls, get this exclusive game, and then lapses or whatever, and they're angry about it. They're like, this is a hassle. This is not the way I like to play my games. This doesn't feel good. I would rather just buy it outright and never think about it again. It doesn't build... I don't think that builds like loyalty the way that you think it might, I don't think that builds like loyal Game Pass subscribers. I think doing what they're doing and just saying like, fuck it, man, we just hope you play it. Buy it on Steam. We don't care. Buy it on the Battle.net. Fuck it, man. We'll meet you in a parking lot and sell physical copies. Sure, I guess. If that's what you want, like, fine. Like, whatever. Just get the game. You just please play our damn games. So I don't see a good reason for them to not do it. They don't need to maintain a level of control over it the same way that I think a lot of when we compare it to streaming services and taking things off of those streaming services, a lot of times that's for tax reasons that I just don't think would necessarily immediately apply. And also for royalty reasons that definitely don't apply to the vast majority of people that work on games these days. So, yeah, I don't think that there's a good reason to do that. They should offer players, yes, exactly. People should be able to buy digital copies of TV shows as well if they want to buy them and own them, or physical copies. Like, sell people the Blu-rays. Who cares? Selling only digital copies, you end up in a situation where, sometimes a rights thing will lapse and, we patched this music out of the game. And if you had it on disc, it would be easier for you to play the pre-patched version. And so that's kind of a separate talking point. It's sort of a separate conversation, because that's more of a digital versus physical benefits of both sort of thing. Right. But in terms of like releasing a game that's only on Game Pass, it just doesn't really seem like there's a reason to do it. If Microsoft was, if Game Pass and all of that stuff, if they were leading the charge, if they had the numbers, if they were like, we are in the lead by a lot compared to our competitors, in terms of players and everything else, and they got to call more shots on a lot more stuff, then I could see them maybe wanting to do something like that. But I don't think they're there now, and I don't think that, again, I think a lot of their friendly talk about player choice and everything else, I think there's reason to believe that some of that would probably change if they were the dominant platform for console video games. But they're not. And so that's why they had to kind of do a lot of this stuff in the first place, because they're like, well, we're not going to beat Sony at the traditional console game business, so we need to come up with something different. And that's what they've come up with. But at the same time, I don't see a lot of reasons I don't see any good reasons to not just sell a game and only have it be part of their subscription service, unless it is like we talked about last week. It's a limited time event. It's hey, we're only running this for 3 months. It's like, like the stuff that Nintendo has done with, the Tetris 99s and some of that other, the Mario 35 and some of that stuff that has gone offline that they didn't let people buy because it was just part of their online service. I could see a scenario like that where Microsoft does something like that, but no, not for traditional games like Elder Scrolls or something like that. It doesn't, there's just no reason, like you might as well get the money, but every way you can. George in Apple Valley writes in and says, with Baldur's Gate 3's surprisingly gigantic launch last week, do you think larger studios or publishers will try to emulate its success and will begin to see a series of high-budget isometric RPGs being released in the future? Or will this simply be viewed as an anomaly and the genre will be left in the state it currently is? I ask because I'm a huge fan and would like to see more of these kinds of games being made without having to run a Kickstarter campaign first to get funding, like with both Divinity Original Sin games, Wasteland, or Pillars of Eternity. No. We're not. This is not going to lead to a rush of high budget, like turn-based, like this style of RPG being made. Like you will probably see some variety of studios that will try to learn the wrong lesson from this, and they will try to make games like this because they're like, well, fuck, man, maybe we can get a piece of that. I think Larian has a pretty proven track record in terms of making these games well in ways that players fucking love. I think the Baldur's Gate franchise is the fucking Baldur's Gate franchise, so you have that working for you. But in a lot of ways, I think the thing that we talked about a few minutes ago is also salient here of like, this is a game that was in early access for years. This was a game that they were making money on, maybe not the massive sales, along the way, but with every update, there probably was a spike in sales of the game. And so they've had money coming in this entire time that has allowed them to, and afforded them, I'm sure, the time to make this game, presumably, exactly the way they wanted to make it. And spend 5 years on a game that, like, a AAA publisher would probably never allow you to spend 5 years on that game. In a traditional publishing environment, they the budget would be much different and a lot of other stuff. But because of the way those things aligned, because they've got a really good track record, because the Baldur's Gate IP is still something that is like relatively legendary in the space, and because again they launched in early access and were able to have their cake and eat it too. Well, like, hey man, they were able to have sales of a game that they were still making. And it worked out in that case, and presumably it sounds like the people are having a wonderful time with it. But the lesson to learn here is not like give people a bunch of money in 5 years to make an RPG. I think that the conditions that allowed this, I think it's why you saw, other people at other studios and whatever else. We talked about this, I think last week, if not the week before, saying like, hey, this isn't, like, don't expect that this is going to be some kind of new normal for this genre or for just AAA development in general because of the number of weird things along the way that make this something different than typical like AAA game development, right? And people took that the wrong way and were like, oh, the lazy game devs are being shown up by these Larian kids. And you're like, you people are fucking idiots. Like, if that's your takeaway from this, you're just too fucking stupid to fucking handle information, I guess. But yeah, no, this isn't even Larian. Like, there's a news story going around out there that they're out there saying like, hey, I think the next thing we're gonna make might be a little smaller. Because even they're like, hey, after fucking working on this for this many years, I think we're gonna maybe we'll take something a little more, not bite-sized, but maybe not as big and crazy. We're not going to rush right into our next 5-year game. So yeah, they're not going to, they're not going to immediately follow it up. Yeah. They probably need to take a rest or something. Fuck. They've already had a couple of patches out for it. I know there was some kind of weird save bug. But yeah, the conditions that allowed for this are not something that I think you can easily duplicate. And we'll see what the sales end up being. I mean, obviously, there was they're saying, hey, it's a rough tech challenge to find a way to get this game running on Xbox because they have to get, I guess, like split screen co-op running on an Xbox Series S. And they're like, that's going to take some time. So, yeah. So we'll see, because that game will come out on consoles, presumably after the good reception that the game is receiving on PC. Like, I would assume that would lead to a pretty big chunk of sales when they do finally get it out on console, because they'll have positive word of mouth and everything else, assuming that those ports are actually good. I don't know. But yeah, it is a weird, anomalous sort of thing, and it's cool that they were able to do it. And who knows if the planets will align again. There's kind of only one Baldur's Gate, so I think even if they turned around and said, "Now we're making Baldur's Gate 4," I think people would treat it differently than this one was. So yeah, I don't know. Like what other? Because I think again. I think that's a big part of it that I think people are forgetting about, because Baldur's Gate 2, well, fuck man, when did that game come out? Was that a very long time ago? Was it 98? No, 2000. Okay. Yeah, and we're talking about Infinity Engine games. Those are fucking old ass games. So I think there's probably plenty of players playing Baldur's Gate 3 that don't really know. And it's, like, kudos to them for calling it Baldur's Gate 3 and not just calling it Baldur's Gate, or just, it's cool to see a Baldur's Gate 3 after all these years, instead of them going like, well, we don't want to scare away people who have never heard of Baldur's Gate 2. And again, because that was 23 years ago, there are people playing Baldur's Gate 3 who were not alive when Baldur's Gate 2 came out. So, yeah. What do but what other franchise, what other like long dormant franchise do you think they could get away with? It's tempting to sit here and say like, like what if we did, can we do another Planescape tournament? Can we do like another one of those? Can we do not like a Tides of Numenera? Which I was like, they made another thing, but it wasn't. Yeah, sure. Do they what if they made a real Fallout sequel? What if they made a Fallout sequel that was not like all of the modern Fallout games? That'd be neat. But I think if you did that now, you wouldn't. Yeah, wouldn't. Yes, that's a good point from Tasty Sandwiches. Wouldn't that just be Wasteland? Like, yeah, kinda. Wasteland, like those games, they didn't really, because they did that game, and I remember it being like relatively well regarded. That game came out late 2020, Wasteland 3. But I don't remember a lot of people really talking all that much about it. I know it was well received at the time, but it wasn't something. It definitely didn't hit like a Baldur's Gate 3 seems to be hitting, in terms of numbers and whatever else. But yeah, I don't know, man. I think, yeah, if they were to make a Fallout in the style of Fallout 1 or 2 today, that would be really neat, but they would not make it with the budget that they make a current Fallout game with. They would be like, hey, we're making Fallout 5, and also we've got another little thing on the side, and hey, here it is, and they would treat it like, oh, this is like the fun throwback game we're making, and we've budgeted it accordingly, and it's not the biggest game in the world, but we're making it anyway because we're, because they're all in on Fallout being what Fallout is now. And they've been making, when did Fallout 3 come out? Let's play this game again. What year did that happen? 2008. So, yeah, I don't know. By the time they put out another Fallout game, when you think about the other games, you would have a situation, well, whatever. Fallout 3 caused this when it came out. Plenty of people played Fallout 3 who had never played another Fallout game before. And to them, this is what Fallout has always been. And so I think as every year goes on, the idea of let's make a game like the classic Fallout games, I think becomes harder and harder to pitch and harder and makes less and less sense. So, with apologies to the no mutants allowed folks. I just don't think that all 12 of them that are left, I'm sure, I don't think that fucking flies in this day and age, as a major big budget, whatever. Yeah, I don't know. Jagged Alliance 3 just came out, though. I still need to play that. I'm still like, I don't know. And there was the XCOM reboot. These classic PC games, you can bring them back. You can do more with them than they are doing, but But I think in situations like Fallout, where they have a wildly successful new formula for making those games, you wouldn't go back and make another one of those, per se. Let's see. Michael from Phoenix, Arizona writes in and says, Media Molecule just released a huge update to Dreams called Tren. This gave me a great excuse to get my PS4 Pro out of the garage and hook it up to see the new stuff they've added. While I was waiting for the system and application updates, I was shocked to find out that there's still no PS5 version of the game. I know you've mentioned Media Molecule and their peculiar predicament in the past, but I'm wondering why Sony has them creating updates for a 3-year-old game while simultaneously not putting that game on the PS5, which sounds like it could use more titles. Do they know where the bodies are buried over at Sony? Did Little Big Planet sell enough consoles to ensure they'll never be shut down? Media Molecule is one of the most interesting things happening over at Sony for me, but it's such a strange outlier from the seemingly business-oriented Sony that we see right now. Well, gosh, think about Dreams on PS5 natively. If you wanted to fully represent everything that Dreams could do, you would need to support the PlayStation camera and the stupid PlayStation Move controllers because people were able to use those for sculpting and creating in Dreams. That might be a no-go. Some of that stuff may be the deal breaker there. VR stuff might be a deal breaker there, I guess. Dreams is one of the games in this month's PlayStation Plus lineup, so I assume that them timing a big update to that probably makes a lot of sense. Okay, Blue Brain says, I was just using the move wands on Dreams on my PS5. Okay, so, it's doable. All right, then. So maybe that's not as big of a deal. I just don't think there's a big call for it, and I think that, if they were going to do it, what would they do to it? Would it actually enhance it? You would also have to ensure so much compatibility with so much created content that, like any quirk of the PS4 release would be weird. Would that be weird and hard to... If you're making a native PS5 version, I don't really know. Yeah, you would need to hook up the PS4 camera, obviously. So that would be to use all that stuff, which is a deal breaker in my world. I'm not going to do that. Fuck that. But yeah, I don't know. I think that there's just not enough call for it. I don't know. It'll come out and it'll be a like I said, it's a PlayStation Plus game this month, and so maybe that'll bring more people to it. But Dreams kind of came and went, and I think people made a lot of interesting and cool shit with it, but you know, for whatever, like, I don't think there were any good big showcases of that content. I don't think Sony itself, like at the Media Molecule level, they've been running live streams and they've built a community of passionate players and all of that stuff, but none of that ever bubbles up to the larger kind of PlayStation nation of players. Like, they never did a good job. And I think, you know, whatever, people have thought of Sony's marketing as questionable for a lot of years, for a lot of different reasons. And, you know, everyone's guilty of this to some extent. But you know, I don't think they ever really did a good job of pushing Dreams out to a wider audience, but also maybe they just didn't believe in it in that level. They're like, hey man, this is going to be really cool, and it's going to sell to the fucking weird people that your games sell to. And you're going to build your community and you're going to focus on that, and they're going to all download each other's stuff and blah, blah, yeah. But like, maybe they just couldn't find a way to make that conceptually mainstream at the size that they need to. And they're like, okay, we could spend time marketing Dreams, which is a esoteric fucking crazy thing, or we could spend that money and that time making sure that more people are aware that there's a God of War coming out or whatever else, which is probably a bigger return on the investment for them than trying to push people on this incredibly weird thing. But Dreams came out, and then it came out in beta, and then it felt like it was coming out over and over again. Dreams is still coming out. Next week, Dreams is coming out. With the way that they released it and then added more content later. And they've constantly been patching stuff in, but like, it felt like a very weird release. And so the release felt like kind of a non-event in a way that, like, when I played that thing pre-release, I was like, this is incredible. These tools are really awesome. And having people from Media Molecule kind of show me the different music tools and whatever else, I'm like, oh man, this is great. I would love to spend some time making some stuff with this. I know myself well enough now to know that I am not going to do that, but I would love to. And so I don't know. I think the onboarding in Dreams was weird at first as well, when they were still in beta and didn't have their big single player component. Like, it was just a strange fucking thing. And they never found a way to get that strange thing in shape to kind of show off to that wider, more mainstream, you know, it's like, you're not going to, like, think about the audience of PlayStation owners that is like, oh, hell yeah, man, Spider-Man 2 is coming out. And then you show them Dreams. They're like, what the fuck is this? The fuck do I even do here? How do I swing? And you're like, well, if you go here and download this and then move this weird menu over here, because we made fun menus, yay. And then get over here. And then if you search for this content, you do this and you find this. And like, even as someone who was willing to jump through a lot of those hoops, I think a lot of their search stuff fucking sucked for a long time. In terms of like finding things that were gonna, you know, or in terms of showcasing great shit, they just never did it. And I know that they would have their monthly events and they would find, you know, they did try to do it again. And I think at the Media Molecule Dreams fan level, I think they fucking nailed it, right? I mean, you know, for the people that were willing to engage with it on its own terms, and they were like, I love watching these live streams, and, you know, they're still live streaming all the time. But it, like, I think for that audience, Media Molecule fucking nailed it. They made something wild. They made a wild set of tools that people have made a lot of crazy stuff with. But the larger Sony machine just never got behind it for whatever reason. And I think, you know, the reasons I think would be like, it's a hard thing to, you know, how do you turn that into, you know, 20 million 10 million, well, however many million copies, you know, it would need to sell for them to go like, okay, we're really getting behind this. So like, there's more they could have done for sure. They could have had a player application that only played content, and maybe that was cheaper or free, so that the players making stuff felt like they could reach a wider audience than just other Dreams heads. Like, you needed to find ways to get Dreams content in front of people who were never going to make shit. They're like, I'm never going to fucking make anything in Dreams, but I want to see it. Like, you need some kind of application, some separate thing that is focused on the playback of content and make it really easy to navigate and really easy for people to like get through and see and do all of that. But it never really had that. Even if you just want to play content in dreams itself, I think that process is clunky and kind of awkward. But the players making things in dreams needed to be rewarded by like, hey, you might reach a crazy big audience. You know, that would have been something that would have kept more players going making things. I'm sure there are still plenty of people making things, but it's, you know, it's a community. It's not PlayStation. And so, yeah, I guess like the short version is to say, I don't think Sony ever really got behind it in ways that would have helped it. But also, I think it is really hard to market that thing. I bet a lot of people spent a long time thinking about like, how the fuck are we going to do this? How are we going to get this in front of more people? And never came up with a good solution. Because I feel like that's a really hard thing to do. Dreams is very weird. It's very like the menus and stuff I found to be annoying and frustrating. Again, as someone who was never really going to make a lot of stuff in dreams, if anything, it was just like getting to the part, like the onboarding was kind of shitty, and you know, it was like forcing you through a lot of stuff, and I don't know. I feel like every time it would update, it would delete my progress, and I would have to go through that introductory onboarding again, and just like, really? So like most of the time I wanted to spend looking for shit in dreams was spent instead like, I gotta turn on this light bulb, and here's my home space, and look at it. It's like, fuck, man, come on. So yeah, I don't know. It's a wonderful thing that they made. And not enough people know about it, and not enough people, even the people who know about it, occasionally find it too hard to engage with. So there you go. Andrew from Central Illinois writes in and says, I have been having a growing obsession with retro handhelds lately. Now, I thought that this was going to mean something very specific and different than it does. These are high quality, not garbage, portable gaming devices made by Chinese companies like Retroid and Ambernic that are made for emulation. For under $100, you can get something that can play anything up to around the PlayStation 1, and then $100 to $200 gets you N64 and Dreamcast with some GameCube and PS2. More PS2 capability is showing up below the $200 space, which is exciting. Do you have any familiarity or interest with these devices? Really, I just want to hear you talk about this shit for a while. Personally, I don't, and then says, personally, I don't own one. I'm just using an old Vita, but I'm waiting and I plan to strike once you can get more PS2 functionality for under $200. Yeah, it's these Ambernic things I've been looking at for a while, and they seem cool, or they seem like they're getting better. I thought about buying a couple or buying one of these a couple of times over the years, and instead just bought a Steam Deck. And obviously that's not under $200, but it does a lot more stuff. And so I've just been using that. For the longest time, I kept thinking, I want some kind of emulation focused handheld, and I don't want an analog pocket because it's not versatile enough. But I want something that's got some power to it. And so for a while there, I was thinking about Android tablets and thinking like, I guess like, what's the hot Android tablet? How do I get it to run whatever, you know, I need it to run? But like the Android tablet space seems like a fucking weird disaster every time I look at it. I'm just like, well, like none of these seem powerful enough, and none of them, like they all seem, it was always just like, well, I could get one of these shitty Amazon ones and root it and do this, and you know, maybe there'd be something, but like it seemed like the tablet, Android tablets just are apparently not a thing. Even the phones, I would say, only good for burners. Like this Pixel 5 I picked up. It's actually really cool. This is something I wish that you could just do. And maybe if you just talk to the right people at a phone company, they'll do it for you. But like, So I have on my phone account, I have two phones, my phone and my wife's phone, and I have an iPad that had cellular, I paid the $10 a month extra for an iPad. And then that iPad got a crack in it from too much crazy use. Screen cracked, shit went wild. And I bought another iPad, but I bought one that didn't have the cell stuff in it anymore. It's Wi-Fi only because I don't need an iPad like that anymore. And so then I realized I've got this SIM card that is just data. It's not voice. It's just data. I'm like, sick. Okay. And so I took this Pixel 3a XL or whatever, Google sent me a Pixel when Stadia came out. They're like, check this out. And they sent out a Pixel 3 Pro, whatever it is, with the mount and controller, the Stadia controller, in fact, which I think is still sitting here with the clamp on it. Still, I flashed it to be a Bluetooth firmware, so thankfully I can still use this controller. Sucks, man. Oh my god. Anyway. And so I was able to take the SIM card out of that iPad and put it into this phone. And then I had a data-only phone. And I was like, this is fucking sick. It's all the stuff that I use a phone for, and no one can ever call me. This is outstanding. I can't send or receive text messages, and I cannot make a phone call because it is data only. And I can take it out of the home because it's cellular. It's not just, obviously you can take any phone and just hook it up to your Wi-Fi and have that, but I could take it on the go. And as someone who occasionally needs a second device for streaming from the car and whatnot, it was perfect because I didn't have to lug the big iPad around. And the iPad was gone anyway. So it was a great solution to that problem. Then, I don't know what happened. This iPad, my kids got a hold of this phone and fucking threw it around, and it got a bunch of cracks on the screen. And I'm like, well, I guess that's what I get for treating this burner phone like a burner phone. And so I ended up looking and seeing also that phone is no longer getting any security updates and whatnot, so maybe I should get a newer one anyway. So I got an even smaller one. I got a 5. Put the SIM card in there. And now I'm living that Jeff Keighley life, baby. 2 fucking phones. That's right. That's a joke for 40 people. And so I don't know. It's cool, having a data only phone. So you should be able to do that. You should be able to just walk into a store and be like, hey, let me buy one of these, but I don't want to fucking make phone calls on it ever. Just let me have the data plan for cheaper. Give me 0 minutes of talk and text. I think that would be cool, but they don't want to do that. They don't want to do that. Anyway, now I have a phone that doesn't have a cracked screen, and maybe it has better microphones in it. We'll see next time. And it has 5G, so maybe it'll connect better when I stream onto Mixler. Go to jeff.mixler.com if you want to follow if you ever want to get notifications about when I'm using that thing. And also, I have VoIP. So anyway, I can actually receive phone calls on that thing, which is disgusting. But you can do it anyway. The Ambernick stuff, I'm always thinking about it. And maybe I would get one eventually. I think for me, the thing I want, and I know that these things do just run RetroArch and stuff like that, and have Wi-Fi and whatever else. I'm a big believer in retro achievements. And so I would want something that would be able to get on Wi-Fi and do all that sort of stuff. And I think these Ambernick devices do in fact do that. So yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool. Alex in the UK writes in and says, if they're seriously going to make a PS5 Pro, I'm going to stop being interested in playing PS5 games until the PS6 comes out. I have a PS5 and it runs PS4 games great. Yeah, I don't know. Everyone's going to have to jump through their own weird mental hoops, I think, on a lot of the PlayStation Pro news here. And what have you. There's someone knocking on my door. I'm just making sure that they are okay. Making sure that they're going the F away. Am I right? Oh. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I think a lot of the PS5 Pro conversation is a really tricky one. And I don't really know what I don't feel good about it. I don't feel good about the idea of a PlayStation 5 Pro coming out next year, which is what the talk was when we discussed it a couple weeks ago. It's yeah. I don't know. I did buy, this just showed up this morning, and so I haven't had a lot of time to fuck with it. But I have been almost buying one of these for kind of a while now. And finally pulled the trigger on one because I just I don't know why I'm getting into controllers. This was what I did instead of buying a fight stick over the weekend, as I watched people play Street Fighter 6 and a lot of players using pads, and I was like, I use a pad to play Street Fighter 6, just like the pros be doing. Not all of them. Anyway, I bought a DualSense Edge. This is the expensive PlayStation 5 controller. With removable, this whole front panel comes off and you can replace the pads. The D-pad feels really good. The buttons, it feels generally like a PlayStation 5 controller does. It's got back triggers, here that you can map it to anything you want, but unfortunately you can only do that mapping, the paddle mapping, from a PlayStation 5. There is no PC software yet to do that. And so I put the paddles in there, but you can have they have buttons that fit in there as well. Anyway, so I hooked up to a PS5 and then mapped these to L1 and R1 because I thought that might be interesting for shooters like a Call of Duty. It's got trigger stops like the Xbox Elite controller has, so you can have a lot less throw in these. Yeah, it's been interesting. But I just hooked it up this morning. And then hooked it up to the PlayStation to do some configuring and played some Call of Duty on the PC with it. And was like, oh, this seems cool. And the sticks feel real nice. I don't know. I had been using a PlayStation 5 controller to play Street Fighter 6. And then I had been using this King Kong Pro 2 to play other games and shooters with. And I kind of got tired of the stick feel on this, and I was like, can I get both of the things I'm looking for in one controller here? And I think that maybe this will do it. It's price. These things are $200, so I don't know. That's kind of silly. But it is, this is their version of the Xbox Elite controller, which was also around $200 as well. Additional texture on the L2 and R2, which is a nice little grip I'm finding. But yeah, little bits and pieces of there's stuff that you can remap and stuff you can't. Like on the PlayStation 5, you can remap this button here, which is the share button. And I saw that you could remap it, and I was like, oh, sick, I'm going to remap it to select or something. And it will not let you remap it to that. You can only remap it to nothing. So if you want to disable this button, you can. And so I can hit, these function buttons here, and toggle between the different settings. Now that I've put settings into the controller via the PlayStation 5, those settings work on PC, but you cannot build those settings on PC because they did not make an app to do that. Which is annoying, but hey, in terms of battery life and all that other stuff, that's not really a concern of mine because I leave it plugged in. And so, yeah, some of the battery concerns that people have had, I'm just like, whatever. I do not use this controller wirelessly, so it doesn't make a difference. And so I'm going to try it out and see how it goes. And if it's bad, I will return it. But I found myself curious about it. Finally, I was just like, like last night, I was just like, I really need to try one of these out. And if I click this button right now, it'll be here at 7 a.m. That's dumb. And so I did, and then it showed up at 7 a.m. And I was like, that's dumb. And so here we are. John writes in and says, I just recently realized by watching Instagram retro videos that PlayStation 1 cases in the United States were the size of music CDs. I'm flabbergasted. I assume that you are aware, in Europe, the cases were really chunky, boys. What gives? Yeah, it's fucking weird, right? I don't know. The first time I saw PAL cases, and they're like mad thick, but not double CD thick in a way that would fit in your standard CD cases or whatever. They were just weird, like 1.5 thickness or something compared to normal CD cases. They seem like, they would be a little bit more durable. I know the CD cases here in the States and, the CD cases that they use for PlayStation games, they crack and they're fucking terrible and whatever else. Bryn, who is in the United Kingdom, says that they were super fragile, that those PS1 cases were super fragile. So, okay. Well, I guess they all suck. I don't know. I'd like to think that like the thick PlayStation 1 case, probably why they had to do it for European games. One of the reasons they probably had to consider doing this is because they had way thicker manuals because they had to be in like 5 languages. I assume that has to be the reason, right? Because if you're going like whatever full e-figs or whatever, English, French, Italian, German, Spanish, e-figs, yeah. Then you need to have all of those manuals in that space, and that would not fit if you had the standard width of a CD case to deal with. You would have to make different versions for different regions and different languages, and they were not about to do that. So it was probably just something they had to do to account for the bigger manuals. Which is a shame, yeah, because like you would think like, oh man, it'd be sick to get a nice big manual, and then you realize like, oh, it's just the same thing 5 times. Bummer. Mark writes in from Australia. Says, I was wondering if you had any insight into why Valve won't release the Steam Deck in Australia and a few other countries. I am confused as to why they release it worldwide when there are people who would definitely purchase it if it was on offer. Yeah, I don't know. I did not know that the Steam Deck was not available in Australia. I figured it was just pretty much worldwide ordering at this point. There's always the possibility that there is some kind of regulation around importing PCs, computer hardware. Like maybe there's some sort of thing there that makes it harder for them to do it. And so maybe once they cross that bridge, they will eventually do it. I don't know. Or maybe it's a case of like, oh, how many people will want them from here? Yeah, someone in Norway says that they're not selling it in Norway as well. That's weird. I assume if you really wanted to go out of your way to get one, you could find somebody to buy you one and ship it. Or whatever else. I would assume it would work with an Australian account. I'm guessing there's probably no like reason why the hardware itself wouldn't do it. But yeah, I'm sure if you wanted to jump through some hoops and maybe pay an additional fee to a friend or something, you could find somebody that would sell you one. But yeah, my only guess is that there's just some hurdle or some kind of restriction, whether it's something about the Australian government or something about the logistics of getting them there. Australia is far away. And every time you ship something there, like spiders and scorpions and snakes and stuff destroy half of it anyway, because they're the size of friggin' trucks over there. Maybe they thought it could be used for graffiti or drug use, and so they banned it the same way they banned Syndicate and Mark Echo's Getting Up Contents Under Pressure. I don't know. But yeah, that's interesting. I was not aware that they were not selling the deck over there. I thought that they were pretty much, because I know they were, like last TGS, they had that cool pamphlet that they made to try to educate the Japanese audience on like, yo man, PC games, they're dope. You should check them out. Andrew from Bernie, Texas says, now that the dust has settled, what are your thoughts on Konami? I'm not even 30, but when I was a kid, Konami was my go-to. Castlevania, Metal Gear, and Silent Hill have always been my favorite series. Konami's slow and steady decline as a developer was easy to take at the time, but looking back, it feels utterly bizarre. Konami had multiple huge franchises that are now just completely absent from the market. Beyond the three I just mentioned, they had Frogger, Contra, Gradius, DDR, Beatmania, all those licensed beat-em-ups. It's honestly astounding to me that they seemingly decided to just dip out of the game industry. Now that they're gone, how do you think they stand up against other industry players? Do you think any of their IP still has enough weight to be licensed by Sony or anyone else? That weird barrage of Silent Hill content along with Metal Gear Delta gives me some hope that they want to monetize their IP. How much of their market exit can be pinned on Kojima's hijinks? Well, look, man, there was a Frogger game relatively recently for phones. That was an Apple Arcade game. So Frogger is not necessarily absent from the marketplace. I believe there was also some kind of shitty mobile Contra game within the last few years here. DDR and Beatmania and all of that stuff that requires peripherals ended up in the same hole that Rock Band ended up in. You know, retailers just got sick of carrying that shit. I think tastes probably changed just enough now that, like, you know, mainstream acceptance of DDR would be a weird thing. I don't know what, you know, like, to me, the DDR franchise is associated specifically with, you know, fucking Eurodance and all of that, all of the shit they put into those games. And so as DDR got on in years, and especially as it became something more international, once they started trying to put like American soundtracks into DDR games and all that shit, when they put them out in the States, it was over. It was just like, oh, this is shitty. It lacks all of the charm of what makes DDR fun and good, by putting all this trash into it. Beatmania, no one knows how to play piano. It's just even 5-key piano is fucking hard. Yeah, so I don't know. Konami is like, they are not the powerhouse that they could be. I think they're not gone from the game industry. In fact, I think recently they've been making way more announcements than I thought they would. They're like back in a way that I never thought they would. You know, like I was just like, oh, they're just gonna sell their shit off or whatever. But like when you think about Konami in the 80s and 90s, Konami was a company that you put in the same sentence as Capcom and Sega when it came to arcade releases, and then, you know, home development based on a lot of those arcade releases and whatever else. Like Konami was right there. And then they did a bunch of home only stuff and licensed stuff. And if you look at, you know, what the stuff they were putting out in Japan and other regions, like on stuff like the MSX and whatever else, like Konami was prolific in a way that, you know, man, I don't even know if Capcom was that prolific back then. But yeah, I think that I don't know that I would necessarily pin a lot of their market exit on Kojima. I think that if anything, they started focusing more and more on Metal Gear and less on their other games. I think a lot of their other franchises kind of dried up. Silent Hill hit a pretty big rough patch, right? I mean, people were not happy with some of those games there that they were doing there near the end. And so I think there's, and I think there were a lot of fucking bad. I don't think there's a good 3D Castlevania game. How about that? I think they are all fucking terrible. Zobek can eat my fucking ass. That dude sucks. That game is fucking terrible. The Castlevania 64 is dog shit. These games are fucking terrible. They lost the soccer license, so that stuff kind of went away, and they lost a lot of that, and so that was kind of one of the other big franchises they had going for a good long time. I think Metal Gear ran its course with a creator who clearly kept threatening to not make any more. And at some point they said, okay, cool, we agree. You're not going to make any more of them. Pack up your fucking shit. So, for me, the frustrating thing is like they also swallowed up the Hudson IP, like Bomberman and whatever else. And that they just aren't, and they have made Bomberman games relatively recently, but I feel like that they could be doing more with that. And I think that they could definitely be doing more with their classic games, whether it's making new ones or whatever else. I think this new thing of them remaking the Metal Gear games is like, sure, I guess. I don't know. Like, people get all amped about it, but like, like, are people going to be, well, it remains to be seen if people are actually going to be fucking happy with those remakes, right? Remasters, whatever you want to call them, because I don't think, I think it's going to be a situation where that stuff's going to come out and people are going to go, oh, it's cool that there's a way to play some of those games on more modern platforms. And that's going to kind of be it. It's not going to be a situation where like Metal Gear is back. It's going to be like, oh, wow, they look at this Metal Gear Solid 3 thing they did. That's wow. They really did some interesting things to it. And it'll be good or it'll be bad and whatever, who cares? And then they'll do the Master Collection or whatever they're calling it, and that'll be them getting that stuff back out there, and that stuff will sell well. I don't think it's something that paves the way for brand new Metal Gear development one way or the other, because I think that Metal Gear Survive is probably still casting something of a shadow over that, and I don't think they need to. I think if they're going to do anything, I think that making a new Metal Gear game just invites, it's too much of a fucking hassle. It's too much of a fucking weird minefield with the fans, because you've got people who are like, well, they've stolen Kojima's legacy. Like, yeah, okay, yeah, I hear you, but they're well within their rights to do it. And it's not like Kojima it's not like he fucking wanted to make, he was constantly, again, seemed like he was trying to find ways to kill Snake all the time so that he wouldn't have to fucking make any more of them. So I don't think that there's a much value in, like, especially, God, imagine if they try to make a game and call it Metal Gear Solid 6. Like, fuck that. That series, they should do their remakes and their remasters and make their money off of it. And that should be it. There's no real reason to continue it forward. I just don't. It just doesn't matter. So, like, yeah, yes, a sequel to Revengeance would be way more interesting than just about anything they could do, I guess. But even that, I don't know. And I love Phantom Pain. I thought that game was cool. I think from a story perspective, it's fucking ridiculous. And I think even the people that are just like, but it wasn't finished. It's like, yeah, well, if you look at the stuff that probably would have been in there had it been finished, it's not like that stuff was good or awesome. Like, I agree with you that when you get to the end and you take this fucking ride in the fucking Jeep and just no one talks for like 10 minutes, you're like, well, this is fucking crazy. What the fuck is going on? That's ridiculous. Like there are parts of Phantom Pain that are straight up fucking ridiculous. And you can try to pin whatever on like, oh, well, the game never over. Like, no, fucking what shipped is fucking nuts. But in terms of it being a fun video game to play, it is one of the best Metal Gear games. What a cool bunch of fucking systems. And like, I see why they would try to make Metal Gear Survive, because they were like, well, what if we took some of the stuff from that game and tried to make a new game around it, but also came up with some new systems around it? I see why you might think that you could do that, but Jesus. And I love the particulars, the little bits and pieces of the Phantom Pain story, I think are fascinating. But then you look at the choices around, like, how little, like, you go and get Kiefer Sutherland, and then, like, he has, like, fucking 4 lines in the game, and one of them is, do it, so that the horse can shit on him. Which is great. I get it. Kiefer had a lot of trees to attack. And couldn't be bothered to show up to record more dialogue or whatever. And I think he does a good job with the lines that he has, but like, you know, if the reason why the character speaks so infrequently is because they couldn't get enough Kiefer Sutherland or whatever fucking happened there, then it's a bad choice, because you get someone that you can call back in to be like, hey, we need to do some pickups. We need to get some more lines in here. Even if they didn't get David Hayter back again, even if they did somebody else, like just somebody that could have spent more time speaking would have been nice. But again, it's a great game. It's a great game. I love 4 as well. I think 4 is some real good, beautiful nonsense. For that franchise, for what they were trying to accomplish with, you know, like making a game about weird old man Snake and all that stuff. I think that stuff's super fucking fun. But I don't think that I think that the fans of that franchise are like savvy enough to where they would not be excited about a Metal Gear Solid 6. That doesn't mean they wouldn't buy it and go like, well, I want to see how bad it, you know, or whatever. Like maybe it would sell fine or something like that. But I don't think there's a ton of value there in a new game. I just don't think it makes a lot of sense. So, yeah. I think that Konami is right to make their remakes and do their stuff. And I think that there's some franchises that they probably shouldn't make more of, I guess I would say, you know, with something like a Metal Gear and whatever else. Like, what, you know, if you wanted to make a new Castlevania in this day and age, like, what do you do? You know, I personally would go, you know, who do you go have develop a new, you know, because the anime is actually really, you know, the anime for Castlevania probably makes a good case for why they should think about making another Castlevania game, I guess. But like, what do you know, do you have like a Mercury Steam go and make that? Like who do you have? Do you go get Tom Happ, that, you know, get the Axiom Verge developers to make you a new Castlevania game? I think that'd be cool. Because that ultimately, when I say I want a new Castlevania, that's the new Castlevania I want. is one of those, a search action game, if you will. So yeah, you know, I don't know. I think Contra is a fun bunch of, is a great. There are some great Contra games, and there are some fucking abysmal Contra games. If we really look at the entire franchise and what they did to it after they made the first 3 or so. In fact, how about I just go ahead and say there are 3 good Contra games, 4 good Contra games. Contra, Super C if you must. Contra 3, The Alien Wars. And the weird Genesis one with the dog. Contra Hardcore. That's it. So I don't know. Konami, yeah, you could make a new Gradius, and there would be a crowd of people that would be very excited for a great new shooter and shoot 'em up, and all of that. But that's not, that's not going to be some billion seller or whatever. Not that they all need to be, but I just don't think that there's enough interest in that style of game to really make a ton of sense. That's something that you license out to like a team of people that is already making a ton of great games like that, and say like, make us one of those. And then they say, we will, but we want to make it Parodius instead. And then they go, no, because we want the Gradius name on it because it'll sell better or whatever. And yeah, I don't know. Konami's a weird, hey, I would love to. For me, the original Super C is fucking Super Cobra. Make a goddamn new Super Cobra. Make a new Scramble. Make a new ER Kung Fu as a proper fighting game. Do something fucking weird with that IP. Because, why not? Let's see here. Chris from Des Moines writes in and says, we were talking about like Nintendo's next hardware, and like after a week, I still am pretty firm on that. I bet the next Switch launches with a Mario Kart game. I bet the next Mario Kart game ends up being a launch game, or if not launch day, damn close to it. They did reiterate in their earnings call. They're like, hey, yeah, we got one more wave of DLC coming, and it's coming in 2023. So that's what they said. They do 6 waves. They got one more wave left. Probably in the fall, I assume. I don't know. Anyway, Chris writes in and says, is there anything stopping Nintendo from giving Super Smash Bros. Ultimate the Mario Kart 8 treatment and just re-releasing it on the next-gen console with periodic content updates? Or do you think that was a one-off thing with how badly the Wii U sold? Yeah, I don't think players. I think you would have a certain number of players that would be excited to see a new batch of characters and DLC for Smash. If they just put Ultimate out with all of the current DLC and improve the netcode or whatever else, and then said, hey, we're going to do another year of characters, like, I don't think that's enough. I think that Smash sold really well, and so that would be frustrating to a lot of players. And so I think that, that is something where Mario Kart 8 got that treatment because it was a Wii U game. And, and if you look at the sales figures for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, this was probably the smartest thing they did. Justin says, you cannot call a game Ultimate and then go backwards. Apparently, I'll look this up here just to double check. But I was told that the game was not referred to as Ultimate in Japan. That it was called Super Smash Brothers. Well, let's look here. Yeah. That it is called Super Smash Brothers Special. In Japan. And not Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I think when you take a game with Mario in it and you write the word special at the end of the title, you should at least get Hudson to do the development work. And now I think that we should port a Smash Brothers game. We should create a new Smash Brothers game for the PC-88. Because that would be good. No, anyway, I don't think they could get away with doing that. Well, they could get away with doing it for Smash. I just think that people would be dissatisfied. I think that you probably... That's a game that I don't think you just add more characters to it. Like, more characters and stages at this point, I think there would be people to be happy about that. But, like, if we assume that people play Smash Brothers like it's some kind of fighting game, then learning the matchups is a big part of that. And then, like, if you're just adding more characters and adding more matchups for people to learn, at some point, that's too much. Your roster gets too fucking big, and it just becomes way too unwieldy to fucking handle. So I don't know that, like, with the number of characters they have in there and all that shit, it would be weird for them to go like, hey, we're putting another 12 characters in here. That'd be kind of a lot. It'd be kind of too many. Yeah, some of the chat says, Sakurai doesn't care for the fighting game competitive types anyway. Well, there you go. More things they can do to break those people down. They're like, we told you you can't have tournaments anymore. Like, why won't you just go away? People are trying to have a good time here. People are trying to have fun. What is wrong with you fuckers? Take a goddamn shower. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't think they could. I just don't think they could get away with it. And that's going to do it. Well, we'll take a Sang from Pennsylvania writes in and says, I was curious about the brand and sizes of the storage bins you're currently using to store your physical video game collection. I'm planning to box up my collection and want to use the same ones you have. I don't know that you do. I assume you've had those games in those boxes for some time and have moved them around. Hence my question. Additional tips in keeping the games inside the boxes and the boxes themselves in good condition is appreciated. I have, over the years, had a wide variety of boxes from a wide variety of makers, be it Rubbermaid and all these other lesser brands. A lot of them broke. A lot of the Rubbermaid tubs when I moved, and so they all got thrown into the back of a truck and driven across the state. With a bunch of other boxes on top of them, a lot of that plastic cracked. And so a lot of those boxes need to be replaced. And I have been very slow to replace them. There's a stuff, I think it's on Amazon also, but you go to the Container Store and look for media storage. Because that's where, if you're looking to store things that fit in DVD cases or CD cases, they have really good like DVD storage boxes that you can configure to store CDs if you're doing PlayStation 1 stuff, or like DS and 3DS actually fit really well in that scenario. But for DVD cases or Blu-rays, you can turn the plastic inside a different way to make it do DVDs or make it do CDs, depending on what you're doing. And those have been really sturdy and really good. So for things of like things that we consider modern generation, like PlayStation 1 forward, I've put those games into those types of cases, and that's been really effective, and those have been really sturdy, and for the most part, those survived the move. A couple of them, like a handle would crack off in the move or something, but those have been really good. For anything older than that, if I've just got cartridges, I'm just, throwing loose carts into a big bin, a big 70, whatever gallon bin with the hardware. So it'd be like, here's my Super Nintendo, and then all the Super Nintendo games dumped in on top of it. If I have something that's still in a cardboard box, then I'm just like, shit, man, I don't know. But yeah, I had a lot of boxes. I had a lot of plastic crack on the trip down, from the being in the truck. And I don't know, there's look for something that's sturdy. If you're going to be stacking stuff up high, look for boxes that seem like they're sturdy on top. That's my tip. And there's well, I can't get to it right now, but I don't know what brand it is, but there's one that's got like a really good, it's like 6 different locking snaps that close it, 1 on each end and then 2 on the sides, 2 on each side. Those have been really good and thick and effective so far. And so I'd probably replace most of my shitty, like the Rubbermaid tubs I got are like, the ones I got are really thin on the top. And so as you start stacking them up, they just cave right in. Not immediately, but over the years, like I have a teetering stack of these Rubbermaid tubs out in the garage that have like my Guitar Freaks guitars in them and a lot of the Rock Band drums and shit like that. And it's just this fucked up stack because the bottom one cracked in, and I'm just looking at it and going like, ugh. And the fuck thing is, these boxes are not cheap, man. Like even those DVD, CD boxes, I want to say are like $20 a pop. And if you start getting into the bigger bins, some of those are like $30 each, man. It's crazy. I mean, I guess it's worth it, right? Because you're trying to keep it and keep it nice. Then you should pay to keep it and keep it nice instead of having it crack apart and have to replace it later. But some of those have been sold. Some of them lasted a good long time to the point where the plastic just got brittle. I don't know. And the lids specifically are that white plastic. And that stuff just felt like it got brittle over the years or something. And a lot of that shit just snapped. But yeah, I don't feel like there are enough good solutions for this stuff without spending more than you want to spend on storage, more than I want to spend on storage tubs. So that stuff's tricky. But yeah, for games that are CDs or DVDs, I think that media storage stuff that the Container Store has, those have been really good and they stack really high. I have stacked that stuff way high, way taller than I am. I've stacked that stuff probably like 9 feet tall, and it's been fine so far. One day it'll all come crashing down, but so far, thumbs up. All right. That's going to do it for the show. Thanks everybody for hanging out. Again, podcast@guard.bike is the email address. Send in your emails to me and we'll talk next Tuesday. I'll be back tomorrow to play something. What will that something be? I'm not sure yet. We'll figure it out. And then maybe Friday we'll do more Nintendo games. Unless something more pressing comes along, but maybe that'll end up being the Friday thing for a while. As we'll do some of this. I will maybe not for this week because I think I have a good idea of what I want for the next episode of that. I think I already kind of have some of that formulated in my head. But what I intend to do, and I will probably post this on Patreon directly instead of just doing it in the Discord, is for people that are part of the Gerstmann Advisory Panel, which you can learn more about at patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann. I will say like, hey man, what NES games do you want to see me play next? And I will let people make some suggestions as to the order. Cause there's like 700 of them. It doesn't, there's some stuff that I'll probably like, don't go suggesting like you should do Super Mario Brothers 3. Cause there are going to be some games like I'm probably going to try to spread out what we think of as like the big NES games as much as I can. So that it's not like here's 9 bangers and then the rest of them are all fucking crazy. But yeah, I'll hit you up for suggestions as to what NES games you want to see me rank next, and we'll make that a part of this as well because I think that'll be fun. But yeah, head over, check out that video on YouTube of me ranking the first 9 entrants to the list. I will make that list public somewhere where people can see it. It's in a Notion doc, just like the energy drink list. So I'll probably start with that, but I haven't had time yet, but I need to go, I guess, set up a damn blog. I gotta build a damn WordPress. If anybody has any good WordPress designs that they like, I guess let me know. Because I guess I'm going to be in the market for a hot WordPress install. Thinking maybe DreamHost or Namecheap. I'm not sure who I'm gonna pay to host this WordPress yet, but those are the two leaders so far, I think, for hosting. We'll see, but anyway, I'm gonna get going. Everybody have an awesome rest of your week. I'll be back again on Wednesday to stream some actual playing of video games. And, we'll hang out. We'll do some stuff. And I'll see you next Tuesday. See you then.